What's going on, guys, and welcome to another late night edition of the Bare Minimum on the Four-Star Chicago Sports Podcast. Guys, we are happy to be back. We did unfortunately miss a week last week. Dustin, it's good to have you back. How you feeling tonight?
I'm good, man. I got off work later than I wanted to. Listen to this shit, man. I get an order at 9:59. I close at 10. And it was a person who had already ordered like an hour before. And then the person calls me and says, I meant to put extra pepperoni on there, which is an upcharge, by the way. He's like, could you put the extra pepperoni on there? I'm like, I got you. Nope. Just regular pepperoni. You ordered at 9:59. I close at 10. Get out of here. I'm sorry, guys. Listen, you order from a restaurant that late, you're not gonna get the best service from anybody. Trust me. You 1 minute before close, be better than that, people. That's not cool. It's not cool. What's up, Bruce? How you doing?
Yeah, I've always had an unwritten rule of law that you at least give like a 15-minute courtesy. You know what I mean? Like call it
It added
9:45.
30 minutes to my out time.
Yeah.
30 minutes. I was ready to roll.
Was it a delivery?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyways, that was my night, and just the moral of the story is don't order from a restaurant 1 minute before close. Don't do that.
Yeah, guys.
I didn't spit in the food or anything, but
no, we don't do that. Yeah, no, my night was all right, man. I got to watch a little bit of that hockey game. I was kind of in and out.
we should talk about that because like the one plus of that order was that I got to watch overtime of that game. And I mean, it was a really good game. I didn't start watching until the third period because I was working, but USA kind of dominated the third period from what I could tell. I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but it seemed like they had the puck a lot more in the offensive end. Overtime for sure. They shot 10 more shots than Canada, I believe. I don't know the exact numbers, but like Canada gets that lucky goal to win it. USA really had a lot of opportunities. Good game, like I said, but I just kind of feel like USA should have won that. That Canadian goalie just kind of stood on his head for the entire overtime period.
Dude, the USA goalie at the end of regulation,
that was crazy.
Canada had just like rapid fire shots. They had like 2 or 3 clean looks, and he made some glove saves that impressed me. But I don't know, man. USA. I watched the highlights of the first game. I didn't get to see it the first time they played when USA won 3-1, and USA just dominated them physically. They just beat the hell out of them, and they did not come out of the gates the same way. Maybe it was a matter of respect. Some of those guys, as I understand,
championship game, man.
played for the same NHL teams. Some of the guys on the opposite sides there. So I don't know.
It was a good game. It was a good. Do you call it a game? Is it a match? I don't know. What do you? It's a game.
It was a good tournament, all-star tournament, I guess. Yeah. It's what's funny.
It's a good idea what they're doing with it. Like it's actually the one all-star thing that's working in sports. That seems like it's the first year they're doing it, but it's actually interesting. It actually feels like there's something on the line. Like the national pride of it matters to these guys, and that's not even a comparison to like the NBA All-Star game or the fucking Pro Bowl. It's not even worth watching, dude.
Well, I found a post on Facebook, and it said like the Russia team that wasn't invited, and it was a much better roster than every team that's there. And I was like, are these guys just excluded? How is this not like you can't do a Six Nation or something? You can't find another nation to include Eastern Europe, like because. I mean, guys like Ovechkin should probably play in those tournaments.
I think that might be a diplomatic thing. Like,
because they're like
assholes
the republic of something. Yeah.
Well, they're kind of waging a war currently.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you're going to be punished for that. So
that's what you get, Ovechkin.
I'm not against that. It's just, and it's funny too because you mentioned that they did the Kurt Russell thing. I saw you post that on Facebook. They played the Kurt Russell where he's giving the end of the movie
the miracle.
Yeah. But he's doing it to the American players. Like they keep going back to the American players on this actual team sitting in the locker room. It's awesome. That's a great speech, and they played it right before overtime, and you're like, fuck yeah, USA, man, they're gonna pull this thing out, and they should have. That's what sucks. Like they dominated. They were in the offensive zone often, got a lot of good looks, a lot of good shots on goal. It's just Canadian goalie stepped up big time, and
Well, and
Sucks.
what's disappointing is, like you said, this, it wasn't even, you have like Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid on this Canadian team, and it wasn't even like a,
And
you know,
Crosby.
wasn't
Crosby's
even,
still playing.
yeah, and it wasn't even like a Nate, like a Connor McDavid, one of those just miracle plays this guy's able to pull off. It wasn't like something flashy. The goalie
It
just kind
was a
of lost
fluky
focus.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got bounced around, but that is what it is, man. That's cool to know that that's going to be a thing moving forward. I'm excited for that next year too, and you have to imagine Connor Bedard's going to be playing in this game very soon. So a couple of Blackhawks players are on their way to playing in that tournament.
I
Um,
don't know. We just talked hockey for this period of time. I haven't followed it in many years since the Hawks were relevant, to be honest. It's not one of my preferred sports, but when it's played well the way it was tonight, it's captivating. It keeps your attention in mind,
I,
sure.
any, I mean, and they probably know this. It's a big draw to get nations to play. I don't watch a whole lot of soccer, but when the World Cup comes around, I watch the games when they're on. I watch all the USA games when I can, and I'll watch the big matches like, Germany, England, Brazil, and Mexico, things like those, games like those. But
Yeah, man, and it makes you wonder if the NBA should really consider what they've been talking about, the American players versus the
the
international
world,
players.
yeah.
Make it a something, put something on the line that's more
Well,
that makes them actually want to be competitive, some national pride. I mean, it's different obviously when you're playing for one nation, your nation, and hockey does not do well at marketing itself, but they actually did something really good with this all-star idea because it drew a lot of eyes, and I think it's going to get a lot of people into hockey. And it's
well, and I
just
think
you gotta see these other leagues kind of get in line with that, like find a way to market your all-star weekend, because currently it's just trash. It's just trash.
yeah, and I think the fan bases of these other three nations booing our national anthem definitely also stirred up a little bit of conflict in those games. So I'd imagine
Oh,
that,
America's always going to be hated.
and there's always
You're the
something that
best, you're
will
always
that
hated.
will well, yeah, you had I don't want to get too, you have the tariffs with the Canadian border. I mean, this, so obviously there's a lot of people angry with one another right now, but Giannis himself came out and
Canada's
said,
stupid. I
Yannick,
would
yeah, yeah, of course. Like nobody respects Canada. Sorry, guys. I'm French
don't
Canadian,
support
and that's
Canadians
the
shouldn't
thing I'm
support
I'm
Canada.
most ashamed of. Uh, I'm French and Canadian. Ugh, those two things
Yeah, that's
together.
rough,
But
man. It's rough. I
but
don't know how he's gotten this far.
Giannis Giannis was already chattering a little bit. Giannis said, "I want to do that. I want to play
Mhm.
USA." So he's already stirring the pot a little bit. So maybe if the NBA did that, it would. I mean, what we just watched this last weekend, Dustin, was garbage. That was
What's
garbage.
what's
It's
kind of
just
funny?
garbage.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, the 3-point contest was the most interesting thing. I didn't watch the All Star game because they did this weird tournament
Yeah.
thing. It's
Team
just awful.
Candace versus Team Shaq.
Yeah, they're just grasping for straws, man. But the thing to think about with the international or the world versus NBA players, like American players, is like I think
Will get killed.
the world would have a much better team than the
Will
US.
get murdered. Yeah. You've got Wemby, Luca, Giannis, and Jokic right there. You're already,
Yeah,
it's over,
yeah,
man.
you're
You're already
done.
finished. Yeah.
You're done.
Um, Yeah, no, but I agree with you, man. It's something that every other, the Pro Bowl too. Like obviously, football doesn't have as many foreign players, but like the Pro Bowl is something that's got to go away. I mean, it's got to stop. These guys got to stop. It's just a vacation for these players. Like I get to go,
Yeah,
and it's
I
not even
don't.
in Hawaii anymore, right? Somebody told me it's in like Tampa or something now.
Yeah, and they play
So,
flag football, and it's like
so they don't even get, like, the
I
big
don't want to
draw was
watch
like they
flag
could take
football.
their family to Hawaii, and now it's
Yeah.
like I get now. Oh, great! Now I get to go to a place that I went to this year because I played the Buccaneers. You know what I mean? It's like
Listen,
been there 100 times.
The reason the NFL is fun to watch and so impressive is because we can't do it. When you're talking about flag football, me and you could go play that tomorrow. Like I'm not as impressed. I mean, obviously you have more physical ability and they still do some kind of cool stuff, but it's flag football. Like
Well,
nobody
and
wants to watch that. You play that. You don't
and
watch
I'm
that.
and I hate to preach it this way, but it's the truth, guys. Like the people are drawn to football because it's violent. That's the best
Mhm.
part about it, is it's violent. I mean, hockey is as well. That is my favorite part of hockey. Is the checks, is the slamming on the glass, man.
And the fighting, and we saw like teams really get physical in this
Yeah.
all-star tournament, and they figured it out. Kudos to the NHL for figuring something out, because it's taken them a while, but that
Well,
was
and
something that was good.
I made two mistakes. I tried to watch Jalen Johnson in the skills competition because he's a Bears player, and it was egregiously uninteresting. He was doing like catching catching competition. I because he's not a receiver. So I don't, like I think even Jalen, he dropped them all, and I think even he was like, "What the hell am I doing here?" And then I tried to watch Boozelis in the dunk contest, and that was even less appealing.
Yeah, the dunk contest was awful.
The
It
guy
really
who
was.
doesn't play in the NBA won again.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to see a guy who's not an NBA player winning an NBA competition like that. I
no.
want to see real NBA players doing real in-game NBA dunks. I'm sick of the cars. I don't want to see anybody jumping over a car.
Well,
That's for YouTube. If you're gonna do that, just get everybody on YouTube and have them compete in your dunk contest. Don't even have NBA players, man. I thought Stephen Castle's dunks were more impressive because he could actually pull those off in a game potentially.
and
It
it's
was
just
just
it
hard to
doesn't
watch, man. It's
it doesn't
done.
make I mean, could you imagine like taking a quarterback from a practice squad and putting him in the Pro Bowls challenge?
Yeah, you're gonna be in the
Like, man,
passing
like,
contest. I
why
don't know.
is he? Other players are like, who do you know here? Is your dad the commissioner? What the hell happened, dude? My buddy, actually, a guy came into work. He doesn't watch the NBA. He's like, I've never heard of McClung. Who is this? I was like, oh, that's because he's not a person. Don't worry about it. And he's like, is he like Adam Silver's nephew or something? I was like, I wish that would actually make more sense, honestly.
Yeah, no, I made the joke to you that if he's actually at Magic practices, just pulling out Kias and putting them in front of the hoop, the Magic players like, dude, we actually have a real basketball game to play tomorrow. What are you doing, dragging a car out onto our practice
And
court?
that key is a piece of shit, anyways. Can you move it? Jesus.
Uh, yeah, man, it's the hockey game was good. All-star weekends, Pro Bowl, all that. They got to do something about it. Probably just need to scratch it from the calendar altogether. It's just they make too much money off of it.
Yeah,
People
I
still
was
go.
a big
So it's
advocate of still selecting guys to the all pro teams so they rewarded for their seasons, but let's move on from this other stuff, man.
yeah. Let's move on from it in this conversation too.
Yeah, I was gonna make the same segue. You segue and son of a bitch. Uh, all right, man. So I know you had some numbers put together for us because the first thing we want to do, guys, is we want to look at that. Everybody's doing their own mock drafts. I've seen this all over every podcast. Now everybody wants to do their own mock drafts. It's fun, I get it, but we wanted. That's no. I had a great idea. We're going to break down the trends we see in the mock drafts from all the experts, guys, and what they have. Primarily, the Chicago Bears picking with the 10th overall pick. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're not necessarily numbers. It's just kind of a collection of some of the more predominant mock drafts out there and what they have the Bears doing at number 10. I mean, that's what we're interested in as Bears fans. What are the Bears going to do with that 10 pick? It's a very important pick. And there's some clear things that the Bears need to address. So the idea is to kind of come up with a consensus. And obviously, the combine hasn't happened yet. The free agency hasn't happened yet, right? So it's like there's a lot of things that are going to change. But I think you can find these trends in terms of what these guys who are in the know they foresee the Bears doing based on their needs and what's going to be available. So
And real
um,
quick, guys, we want to give a shout out to Breaking News, Bruce, as always. Thanks for being here, Bruce and
and
T.
T just joined us. T
Yeah,
is a Detroit Lions fan, but is very astute in saying the Bears need to address offensive line. And I
yeah,
mean,
he's obviously educated in the ways of football from top to
yeah,
bottom, right?
yeah.
He's always able to carry a conversation about the Bears. We appreciate that, T.
Thanks, T. Thanks for joining us. So yeah, offensive line, T. That's what it is. I've looked at 12 different mocks today, and they're all offensive linemen. Every single person has the Bears taking an old lineman at number 10. Now, where it starts to get a little interesting is who these offensive linemen are. So I'll just run through the drafts, who's doing them, and who they got the Bears taking, and we can kind of develop a consensus, at least for now, in terms of which way the Bears are going to be leaning. So Daniel Jeremiah just came out with his most recent one, his
I like
2.0.
Jeremiah. He's one of my favorite mock drafters.
Yeah, him and Zerline for NFL.com, they do a lot of good work. But he's got Kelvin Banks going to the Bears, offensive tackle out of Texas. Matt Miller is a guy I've followed since Bleacher Report. He's now at ESPN. He's got this one surprised me, and I sent it to you guys when I saw it a couple weeks ago. But he's got Tyler Booker, the offensive guard out of Alabama, with that 10th pick to the Bears. Chris Trapasso, CBS. This one's a huge curveball at this point in the process. Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. Guy's a former track star. I mean, discus, javelin, shot put. He's a freak of an athlete. So that's an interesting one. Some food for thought.
The Frankenstein of athletics.
Yeah, dude. He's pretty fast. He's pretty skilled from a physical standpoint. I guess he's an athletic freak, basically. And he's like 6'6", 340 pounds. So he's a big boy. Daniel Flick.
Hold on. I want real quick, man. I'm sorry to cut you off. And guys, we're going to right back to this. I just got a message from ESPN. And listen to the way this is worded, man. LeBron James passes Michael Jordan for the most 40-point games at the age of 40 or older. That's worded very deceivingly, is not? It's making it sound like LeBron has had more 40-point games than Michael Jordan.
Brandon, I feel like this could have waited. I'll say that first.
Sorry. Just got it. I would have forgot it.
Also, it is impressive that LeBron at 40 years old is putting up big points the way he is. I mean, that's what it's saying. It's like Jordan at 40 did not. He was nowhere near as good.
40, yeah, but I mean, it's going to read to most people like LeBron has surpassed Jordan in 40.
But the qualifier needs to be that obviously sports medicine, sports science at this point in our at this time in our lives is a lot better than it was when Jordan was a player. You know, like LeBron basically does everything to his body to keep it in tip-top shape, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of commitment. So kudos to him.
Man, he's still a freak.
Like I love LeBron. I love Jordan. Jordan's the best player of all time, but I don't discredit LeBron for anything that he's done. The guy's an insane player, very talented, and his accomplishments are just
kind of like that Minnesota tackle. The guy probably could have done a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. So moving on. Thanks for that, Brandon. Yeah, Daniel Flick out of Sports Illustrated. He's got the Bears taking Armand Membu. He's an offensive tackle out of Missouri. The guy's a right tackle. He started the last 2 years at right tackle. He's being projected moving to guard based on when I see these mocks and how they're talking about him. The Bears obviously don't need another right tackle. They just drafted Darnell Wright a couple of years ago. And I don't think he's swinging to left. So this guy's going to be a guard for you if you draft him. And then my question is, wouldn't you rather just have Tyler Booker, who's played guard his entire career? And
I think pound for pound, awesome. Booker might be the best lineman in the draft.
I mean, listen, him being at 10 on Matt Miller's mock is a surprise because he's going in the second round in certain mocks, late first, I mean, middle first. Like he's got a pretty wide draft range right now in terms of these mocks. But
that'll get tighter.
I would rather take Tyler Booker personally and just know that I'm getting a guard instead of a guy that I'm moving to guard. Jordan Plocker, PFF, this is Pro Football Focus. He's got Kelvin Banks to the Bears at 10. Dan Parr at NFL.com has Armand Membu. This is another one. But again, he's a guy that people think could be an all-pro guard, basically. Chad Reuter of NFL.com has Will Campbell, the left tackle out of LSU, going to the Bears at 10. Lance Zierlein, here's another one. Kelvin Banks, he's NFL.com. Bucky Brooks, NFL.com. Armand Membu, again. Eric Edholm of NFL.com has Will Campbell. Field Yates at ESPN has Kelvin Banks. And Mel Kiper has Will Campbell. So if you break that down, we got 4 people projecting the Bears at this point in the process to take Kelvin Banks. You got 3 people coming in second projecting out Will Campbell and Armand Membu with another 3 people, and Ariante Ursary and Tyler Booker each projected to the Bears one time. And those are the ones that are kind of outliers that stand out.
Yeah, fringe. I'm glad we did this though, because it's almost shocking to hear that Membu is tied with Campbell.
It's close. Well, yeah, with Campbell, yes, it's close to Kelvin Banks too. And I mean, Kelvin Banks is the number one offensive tackle in this draft by all accounts, and Will Campbell is right there. There are some people that think Will Campbell, because of his size, his height, he's 6'6", will be a better left tackle. Is more of a prototype of what you want. Will Campbell has allowed 5 sacks total in his career at LSU. He started at left tackle since a freshman. He went 27 games without allowing a sack, Brandon. 27 games. That's
we are just looking at what these mock drafts had the Bears picking. In most of these cases, though, one or the other guy went prior to the Bears making their pick, right?
Yeah. Will Campbell's gone when Kelvin Banks goes, and vice versa. T says 3 years at left tackle for Banks. He's a big fan of Kelvin Banks. Listen, I love Kelvin Banks, and yeah, he allowed 5 pressures all of last season. I mean, the guy is a technician at left tackle. He's only 6'3". The arms is what Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks get knocked at. Now, when you're looking at this, the main thing that stands out to me is you're drafted at 10. It's going to be an offensive lineman by all accounts. It's 12 of 12 went O-line. So T is right on that. But I am really focused on blue chip. I think there's about 10 to 14 really legitimate first round players in this draft. So I want to get one of those guys with my 10th pick, right? And I am looking at positional value as well. If I'm looking between Armand Membu and Kelvin Banks, I'm going to take Banks because of his ability, his potential to be an all pro left tackle. Now, by all accounts, Banks can be a better guard in the NFL. His ceiling is higher at guard than tackle, but you don't have to move him. And he could be a damn good left tackle for you for 10 years. He knows what he's doing. He's played against the best competition in college football his entire career, and he's a leader. He's a leader on his team. He's a captain. So is Will Campbell. Like, these guys are leaders. They've played against really good competition, and they've played at the left tackle position for their entire careers, and they've done it well. So these are guys that I'm putting my foot in the ground. Don't move them to guard. Will Campbell will be a starting left tackle in the league for 10 years. I think both of these guys will. I think they're both blue chip guys, Brandon.
Well, and they're certainly both immediately the best left tackle on your football
on the Bears,
team, like you said, Dustin. And in regards to Membu, I do like drafting Booker over. If I'm taking a guard, I'm going with Booker over Membu, even if people think that's a reach where Booker at 10. But yeah, I agree with you, Dustin. You don't take Banks, you don't take Campbell and move them anywhere. You plug them in a left tackle. I mean, there's obviously a chance that it doesn't work in the NFL, and they have the ability to move them to guard, but you don't
do it first.
The opportunity.
Yeah, you don't do it first. You do the left tackle first.
Yeah. This is your blind side tackle and a guy who's struggled very much, and
a top 10 pick.
And we still don't know about the health of Braxton Jones. You might go into this season without him. No idea. It's speculation that he'll be ready to play. So
I like the potential versatility of a Braxton Jones to potentially move to guard himself, or for one of these guys that you take, if it's Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks, that they can move into guard potentially, and Braxton Jones stays at left tackle. My only thing is that Braxton Jones will never be an above average left tackle in the league. He's not a guy I want to pay. You got to upgrade that position. And T says it right here. We need the pass blocking to protect Caleb. And he's talking about Kelvin Banks in terms of working on his run blocking. Now, I've seen his run blocking grades be higher than his pass blocking grades. He tends to have trouble with long arm guys. The speed off the edge he's pretty good with, but the power and the counter moves he has issues with from what I'm reading and what I've seen of him playing. So, I mean, like, Kelvin Banks will figure it out in the NFL, I think. And I think if you're the Bears, you got to get one of these two guys, Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks, the way it's looking now. I mean, again, combine is going to change things. I do believe Tyler Booker is a first-round graded player. He's not on a lot of those lists. I think Tyler Booker will be a blue chip player out of this draft. So he's a guy I'd be comfortable with the Bears taking, and I wouldn't really think twice about it. It's just again the positional value, Brandon. We've taken. I was upset when the Bears traded back when they could have taken Jalen Carter, who was the best player in the draft, and they took a right tackle at 10. And it's like, yeah, Darnell Wright's good, but I need a left tackle. That's the way I felt from the beginning. And if I could have
Yeah,
had that
me and you
defensive
both.
tackle, like it wasn't a conversation to me. The draft value in terms of this guy's a blue chip player, this guy's not, and in terms of this position is a defensive tackle, a three technique in Jalen Carter, and this other guy is a right tackle. I mean, it didn't add up in a lot of ways for me. So taking a guard in the top 10, that's a tough proposition because, as we've said before, you can find those guys later on in the draft, in the second round, in the third round, even the fourth round. It's the left tackle is the most important position on your offensive line for Caleb Williams, and those guys have that value at that spot.
Well, and right, because you said Membu would play on the right side most likely, and they drafted like we were both flabbergasted us, and they took a right tackle because you had Justin Fields was mobile as well, and now Caleb Williams, the quarterback you drafted, mobile as well. You have quarterbacks who, when they're able to see the rush, because that's where they're looking, their left side is their blind side. They're often looking in the direction of the right tackle or the player rushing from the right side, so they can react. You know what I mean? That's the
Yeah,
importance of a left tackle is your quarterback whose health is the most important thing on in your franchise doesn't see the guy coming from behind him on the left side. He can react to the guy who's on the right. So that's why a right tackle to me in a top 10 was just shocking. It really was. It was
it's
shocking.
not just physical health either, Brandon. It's confidence. Does Caleb have confidence in that left tackle to where he doesn't look over there
Yeah, the
and he
pocket
stays
awareness is
right?
that closing in on him. Yeah.
You got to have faith that that guy's going to do his job. So the Bears need to get a guy that Caleb can have faith in to do their job to where he can process what he's seeing on the field. And I think Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell are your two best options. And I
And I
mean, we're
think
going to see how the
Campbell
draft falls, but
I think Campbell will be picked prior to the Bears.
yeah. I'm starting to feel more and more like how I felt last year with I'm totally blanking on his name and it's embarrassing. A guy out of Notre Joe Alt. Like he was like there was a conversation between him and Olu Fashanu back and forth, in the early process, and then it just became quite clear that Joe Alt was heads and shoulders above him and was going to be a high pick. And I think Will Campbell's going to end up being that guy this year. I do love Kelvin Banks, but the size that Will Campbell provides and just and he's got the tape to back it up too. I mean, it's just you can see him. Teams will be able to easier project him at left tackle, so that will bump him up just on the
Well,
strength of that.
and Banks' stock, I think is rising because if you have four people projecting that the Bears will get Banks at 10, they expect Campbell to go first. But the three mock drafts that project the Bears to take Campbell at 10 probably have Banks going prior to 10th.
Not in every case, man. And I'll tell you this: the ones that have Will Campbell going to the Bears, they're farther back. They're going back into January. The more recent ones, it's starting to see that trend of Will Campbell's going before. You know what I'm
Well, yeah, and
saying?
the numbers what did you say? You had said 5 sacks in his collegiate career. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
3 years starting at
I
left
mean, he's,
tackle from a
I don't care
freshman.
how short his arms are. He's got the
Yeah.
credentials, man.
Listen, Kelvin Banks, I feel the same way about, but it is 100% clear to me that most teams in the NFL are, and all these draft prognosticators, they are expecting him to move to guard. I got to plug in my laptop, but that's that's what they're expecting. So Will Campbell is going to have a higher value in the draft. That's for sure. I think the Bears would having an opportunity at drafting him would be a steal. I do want to get to this question from T. Brandon. You want to read that?
Yeah, he says, I have a question. How is Caleb on smarts? I'll be interested in how Caleb picks up that new playbook. He has the arm, but you guys know better than me. I'm pretty well recorded, guys, on and here on the podcast and CSPN here, in stating that I believe Caleb is the most intelligent quarterback that was taken in a draft with 6 quarterbacks in the first round, right? I his His mind is what impresses me the most, honestly, guys. You don't see quarterbacks in their rookie seasons getting such a long leash when it comes to changing plays at the lines and dictating things on the field. Caleb Williams had a lot of control pre-snap, a lot of control. So something you never saw Jaden Daniels do once. Honestly, I don't think I saw him do it once. So
Doesn't that make you wonder about that report that Shane Waldron wasn't watching film with him? Like, if you weren't watching film with your quarterback, then why did you have the confidence in him to allow him to change plays and do so much
maybe
pre-snap
Shane just thought he was taking the year
communication?
off.
I mean, I highly doubt
I
that,
don't need
man.
to watch film. I don't got to call plays. This guy's got it.
Caleb is a smart dude. I that's the one thing I have no concerns about, that he will pick up the playbook to you. I really don't. If you listen to him come to the podium at the end of every game, the guy is introspective. The guy is highly acutely aware of what went on in the game. He can repeat it to you, and he understands what he needs to get better at.
Yeah, he's good at fixing
He's a
himself.
humble dude, but he has confidence. I mean, like, all of the things I look for in a person when I'm judging intelligence, Caleb has, shown. I mean, obviously, I'm not in a room with him. I don't know Caleb personally, but I do believe that that is the biggest strength of his game. And I think that shows when you look at a rookie quarterback under as much duress as Caleb was this past season, only throwing 5 interceptions. I think that that is the biggest predictor of his smarts. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy did not make crucial mistakes that would cost you games in a situation where most quarterbacks would, even veteran ones. So his smarts is not something I have a concern with. I do have a concern with his head staying on his shoulders if the Bears don't get an offensive line in front of him to protect him.
Yeah, brain's no good when it's not attached to your body.
Yeah. So I
But yeah,
mean,
no, I was gonna say the same thing, Dustin. His ability to learn from his mistakes. He's obviously good with adversity. He's it's just like he's a football guy. That's what Caleb feels like to me. He's not a lot of players rely on the knowledge their coaches have to put them in better situations or but situations best for them to succeed. Caleb is a guy who's aware of the situation he needs to be in order to succeed. Has that awareness, and I don't. You don't see that a lot. You see guys develop that over the course of their careers. You don't see guys come into the league with that so much.
yeah, no, and we need to see a guy come into the league this year for the Bears that is a left tackle, I think, of that number 10 pick. And I think that's kind of the consensus at this point. Now, I mean, obviously a lot of things can change. We've said that already, okay? So there's combine, there's free agency, needs are going to change, priorities are going to change, but the Bears got to get one of these 10 to 12 blue chip players, true first round players. And I think Banks and Campbell both are. So if you take whichever one comes to you at number 10, unless you're in the mood to trade up to get somebody like that. But you need a guy that will protect Caleb's blind side better than what was done this past season. And that you can't wait to address that. So I think that these mock drafts having this trend of 7 out of 12 are taking a left tackle. I think that's for a reason, because the writing is pretty much on the wall here. It's something that needs to get done.
Yeah, and you can't stress this enough, Dustin. I've been saying this for months. Honestly, I have, because I'm not trying to claim I'm ahead of the curve, but I agree with Dustin. I've said this for a while. I don't trade a lot. I hear a lot of trading back, trade back. The Bears should trade. I agree that this is not a strong draft class, guys. I think once you get past the 15th, 16th pick, the talent falls off tremendously. You don't want to at any cost pass up getting a blue chip talent, even if you're thinking we can move 6, 7 spots back. If that's the difference between blue chip and not, don't do it. Don't trade back. I don't like that. What makes your football team competitive is getting the best player available when available, right?
Yeah, I have always been and always will be a quality over quantity guy. I don't
That's why Miles Garrett is.
I don't need 10 of
That's why
something
we
that's
like.
just
That's why we
mid.
love the Miles Garrett thing.
Give me one thing that's great, and I'll take that over 10 mid things. I just will. And the Bears moving out of position to draft one of those players, that would not be something I am for in any kind of way. Stand pat or move up. That's it. Unless you're trading that pick for Miles Garrett, use that number 10 pick on the best player that falls to you. And I think that kind of transitions us, Brandon, into something you want to touch on in terms of blue chip talent, taking the best player available, and not overthinking this shit. Now, you can't draft on need in the first round when you're a team like the Bears that has so many needs for talent. You need more talent on your team, so you need to get the most talented player you can get with that pick, right?
Yeah, and the reason this came to my mind, man, the reason I've kind of spitballed this a little bit is because, like you just read, I mean, would we read 10 mock drafts there, and almost,
12.
and you could read probably 50 guys, and you're gonna see probably mostly the same names and definitely the same positions, right? We're gonna see offensive line, offensive line, offensive line, and it kind of made me ponder. Let's say Banks and Campbell are selected, they're off the board. Let's say the best player on the board is Mason Graham or even Warren. Let's say the tight end is the best player on the
Tyler
board.
Warren out of Penn
And
State.
with your 10th pick, guys, should the Bears be taking the best player available no matter what the position? This is a question I've often asked people is what do you prefer, need or talent? And a lot of guys say the same thing to me. When you're picking as high as a top 10 pick, you've got to just take the best guy that's left on the board. And that might be a Tetero McMillan. This could be a receiver. This could be a position that you don't necessarily believe the Bears require. But if you take that person who's there, as long as he's on your, and he's got to be somebody that Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson have on their board as the best player available. So let's say it's Tetero McMillan, guys, a wide receiver, right? It gives you the ability to do things, right? I mean, Dustin, like you said before, you just you make the pick and you address the things later, right? Now you have the ability to trade a DJ Moore who's under a good contract, but obviously older than Roma Dunze and a guy like Tetero McMillan. And then you made a good example with Warren. I mean, do you trade if you can have draft Warren, who's now I'm reading by every measure is going to be like
Rob Gronkowski
Gronk? Yeah.
comparisons.
Do
Rob
you draft this
Gronkowski is
guy?
his fucking ceiling. That's insane.
Because let's be honest, no matter what position it is that you take at 10, the player is probably going to be an upgrade from what you got, right?
Yep. And I want to hear a fun fact about Warren is he ran for a touchdown, threw for a touchdown, and caught a touchdown this past season. This guy does everything. I just wanted to throw that out there. When you're talking and what you're touching on, the thing that comes to my mind, I have a question that comes to my mind. Do you believe Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, they got their board set up, and Tetero McMillan is the guy that's there who is the best player available at 10 when their pick comes up. Do you think they actually pull the trigger and stick to their board and stay true to their board in that situation?
Well, I hate to say this. I don't like even giving um, difference. I would like the answer to this question to be the same no matter what. Like whether it's yes or no, I want it to be the
It's
same.
what do you think?
I want
Because
it to
you
be
can't know,
yes.
man.
I think Ben Johnson knows what he wants and what he needs, and that's the way he's going to number his board. But does free agency change this? You know, I mean, if it's a if there's a player like Calvin Banks on there, but he gets himself a few quality offensive linemen, is Calvin Banks still the player that's at the top of that list when the 10th pick comes around? I don't know. You know, if he's got just a right before, let's say prior to free agency, right now he's got a 1 through 15, and the guy who's left when he gets to 10 is a receiver, Tetero McMillan. Yes, I want Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles to take the guy that they deem the best player in the draft, Dustin. I do. I want who they think is the best player on my football team.
Yeah, and that's a fair expectation, and I could see why you would want to do that. For me, the Tetero McMillan conversation in particular is not one I'm really willing to entertain. You think about this guy, and could he be the next Mike Evans, like a lot of people think? And if so, wouldn't you want that guy on your team? 100%. But it's like, what's the return for a DJ Moore? And how much do you lose out if Tyler Booker is there and maybe he's the 15th player drafted and you take Tetero McMillan 10, and now you've missed out on your opportunity to address your offensive line depending on what happened in free agency. It's not as cut and dry as you always have to take the best player on the board. As much as I'm an advocate for that, situation does have to dictate some things.
It does open more like it doesn't have to just be like, let's say you like Tetero McMillan. Now, guys, I'm not saying that this is who Ben Johnson, and I'm not even saying that's the best receiver in the draft. I'm not saying at the 10th spot he's the best player.
You believe he is? That's okay.
I think he's the best receiver in the draft. I don't know that he's the 10th best player in the draft. This receiver class is weak to me. Travis Hunter is one of the best receivers, and he's not even going to be drafted as a receiver. But I
Well, he'll
think
be used as one.
I'll say this: the options that this makes the options that this gives you guys is more than just like, oh, if you draft Tetero McMillan, you gotta get rid of more, right? Because now you've got to do something to get no. If you draft Tetero McMillan at number 10 and you have conviction about Tyler Booker, you take your 2 second rounders, you fucking trade them to get back in the first round, and you take your Tyler Booker, right? You have to be this is what I've been saying, is you have to be aggressive right now. If you're Ben Johnson, you're taking over a team with a quarterback who's in his second season of his rookie deal. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to try to put together a team you think can compete right now. That's for sure. And you do that, guys, by putting the best players available on that football team.
T says no, don't take a receiver, guys. Winning is built in the trenches. Take it from a Detroit guy. We did that for years. Even with Calvin, we didn't do nothing. You guys got one playoff appearance, I believe. Lost that game.
I mean,
Calvin
Calvin
Johnson
probably
Calvin
could have
Johnson,
used somebody across the other side, though.
yeah, Calvin Johnson
Instead
had
of
a
taking a
hell of a
receiver.
career. That's fun to watch, but yeah, you want to win, obviously, if you're rooting for your team. And again, we're not advocating. This is more of a thought exercise in terms of
Well, and like I said, you could
the
plug
best
this in, like
players in the
plug it in
draft
with
that we want
Warren.
to get.
The Bears have a tight end. Let's use Warren. It doesn't have to be a receiver, because that's the position people are going to say that are going to shun the most, because it's like the Bears have pretty quality receivers.
I think I would shun it too, to be
This
honest.
this could be anything. This could be anything. This could be a safety. If you believed Malachi Starks was the best player, this could be whatever it is. What I'm saying to you is,
Well, the Bears actually have a need for a safety, I think.
with the 10th pick, I'm thinking very little about the needs on my roster. I am. I want
For
the
sure.
best
And
guy available.
if Warren was available at 10, that's one I would consider. And you start to think I was very down on the idea of drafting Brock Bowers, and that was understanding how much talent he had, how really, really good he was. I drafted him in all my fantasy leagues. I wanted every piece of Brock Bowers. I didn't want him for the Bears because of the Cole Kmet extension and because of the Gerald Everett re-signing, or sorry, just the signing of Gerald Everett. And look at what it got us. I mean, Cole Kmet was very rarely used in the offense. And he's a liability in the run blocking game, penalties that cost you in critical situations. I mean, if Brock Bowers was on this team, that would be something I'd feel a lot better about. If you're talking about a guy like Warren who's getting compared to Rob Gronkowski and George Kittle, I'd be willing to move on from Cole Kmet to get that guy. I just would. And now
Yeah, and
it comes down to
a lot of people hated the Roma Dunze pick. A lot of people felt the wide receiver was not something the Bears should have done at that pick, and
it.
you
It
feel the
wasn't.
way you want about it. But I like Roma Dunze, and I think Roma Dunze. I honestly,
What's
guys,
up,
and I'm not
Elizabeth?
saying this because I'm a Bears fan and he's a Bears player. Roma Dunze is special, and he's going to be. I believe Roma Dunze is better than DJ Moore. I do. I think he is, and I'm not saying like he's going to be. I think he is. I think he just needs to be more acclimated, and once he is, he will absolutely be the best receiver on this Bears roster for sure.
Rome is a great guy too. The Bears got a really good player and a really good dude in Roma Dunze. I personally, I
What's
wanted
up,
Jared.
Liz?
I wanted Jared Verse, to be quite honest. But and that was a positional thing too. I did think it was a luxury for the Bears to take a receiver, and I was with you during the draft, and I had talked leading up to it about how much I liked Jared Verse, and I would have taken him over Rome in that situation. It's going to come down to what happens in the draft. If Will Campbell and Banks are both gone, and Mason Graham falls to you, by all means, turn in that card for Mason Graham immediately, because he's going to be a stud in the NFL. He is one of those true first round grades.
Well, yeah,
So
and then
he's a guy I would take. But if all three of those guys are gone and Warren is there and he's your last true first round grade, I might consider taking that guy just
yeah,
to
and when
get that type of talent on my team and then figure the rest out later.
and that's something we didn't even discuss, is the Bears guys might be ultimately put in this position unfavorably. You know what I mean? You're talking like, I'm sure there's people listening to this like, oh, a tight end, a receiver. You might be the top best offensive lineman and defensive lineman might be off the board by the time you're making your pick, and you need to at that juncture, guys, just take the best damn player on the board. Don't think about it too much.
It's an
Honestly.
interesting thought exercise, Brandon. And I mean, I think you're gonna get a lot of people divided on this topic
Oh, for sure.
because you
What's up,
definitely
Shorty?
Shorty, what up, man? How you doing? You definitely need to account for what your team needs. But when years and years of not taking the best talent available, those catch up to you. When you pass
And
on supreme talents to get a position of need, when you could have had that supreme talent, that starts to show.
and we saw that
We've
happen
seen
with
it.
Ryan Poles. We saw this
Yes.
happen. And guys, you have to be careful. Like, if you don't believe that Banks, like, let's say Campbell's selected, if Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles don't believe Banks, if he's 19th on their board, and they get to the 10th pick, and he's the best offensive lineman available, you better not take him. If you don't believe, if you don't believe that he's the guy, you better not take him. Okay, you know what I mean? That's what's
Well,
most important to me, is you're not reaching potentially on somebody.
and it's going to be who their guy is, and that might be different from our guy. And you brought up Roma Dunze, and that hopefully is the biggest indicator that we can find that polls does take
Learned.
the well, not just that. I mean, listen, you can even apply it to Darnell Wright. The Bears had Jalen Carter, who was the best player in that draft, staring them in the face, and they looked that gift horse in the mouth and said, "I don't want no part of that." And they went back and they got the guy that was number one on their board, apparently. Roma Dunze was the guy who was the best player on their board, even though they had just traded for Keenan Allen and they already had DJ Moore. So it seems like polls, if anything, whether or not I agree with who his guy is, he does get the best guy on his board when he has the opportunity to. So that could back up kind of what you're saying. Like, if Warren were the best player on the board, maybe polls has shown us, and we're not really realizing it. Maybe polls has shown us that he's willing to do that, because he passed on Jared Verse to take Roma Dunze because he had Roma Dunze ranked higher on his board.
Yeah, and he passed on some offensive linemen to
Take it
take
easy,
Roma
Chief.
Dunze. See you later, T. Have a good night, man. He passed on offensive linemen to take Roma Dunze.
Yeah,
He
so I mean,
passed
like,
on the Bears' greatest needs to take
positions of
Roma Dunze.
need were passed up on to take what he thought was the best player available, Brandon. So what this thought experiment that you're talking of, that you're bringing up to us right now, is something that is showing itself in what Ryan Poles does and how he conducts his drafts.
And we're not pulling the rabbit out of the hat here, Dustin. Like, every single measure, every source we've seen has the Bears taking an offensive lineman, and I just want to remind people, it's you just said it. It's not what Brian Poles has done. He has not taken the greatest position of need over the best player available, and if, as far as he's concerned, right? That's another thing, guys. Is his list might be very different from ours, right?
Oh,
it has been in the past.
I'm sure it is. We got to have.
I did not have Darnell Wright above Jalen Carter as a talent. I certainly did not have that.
No. All right, but so I mean, listen, we're not advocating for the Bears to take a receiver at number 10. Just want to make that clear. Just more having the conversation about who the best player available is, and is that the guy you go for no matter what, regardless of who you already have on your team, because you can figure the rest out later.
Shorty likes Booker, it looks like.
No, I have to think the playbook being designed with him, that he won't have any problem at all. Listen, man, we got headlines, deadlines, lifelines, right? Or is it just headlines, deadlines?
Just headlines, deadlines. It's all right that you've screwed that up like 4 weeks in a row. But
well, I'm sorry, but it's like if you had a cat, okay, Brandon, you had a cat as a kitten, and I met it for the first time. You're like, this kitten's name is Sprinkles. And then, like, for 2 months, I called the kitten Sprinkles every time I came to your house. And then, like, on that third month, you're like, I just shortened it to Sprink. Start calling it Sprink. I'm gonna have a tough time. It'd be like if you told me all of a sudden that you were now a woman, I would mess up your pronouns for a while.
We're talking about a cat named Sprinkles. Hey, Shorty, I'm in the market for a new co-host. What's going on here, bro? Anyways, it's they, them, Dustin, please. All right. Okay. Headlines, deadlines. Number 1. We've talked about some of these things, man. We didn't really dive into the subject, which I was glad you started to mention them. I was like, just kind of glance this over. Don't go too thoroughly. If contributing factors such as revenue and ratings were excluded, NHL players should and would make more than any other professional athlete.
What?
If you didn't consider the amount that the sport grossed, NHL players deserve more money than other sports because they play no matter what.
Dude, no. Deadline. It has to be based on the
More
money
than
you make
baseball,
in.
more than NBA.
It
No,
has to
I'm
be
saying
based on the money you
no.
take
You can
in.
do
It
this.
has to be.
You can do this. You can pay. You can. We're talking about pay for effort. Pay for effort. I say NHL deserve. They play harder than any other sport besides maybe football, but baseball and basketball certainly, man. They certainly do. They 100% do.
Shorty
Basketball.
was talking about the question T had about Caleb Williams if he was able to pick up the playbook. He's more saying like Ben Johnson's going to tailor it to Caleb, so picking it up
Yeah, it's
should.
going to be Caleb's playbook. Yeah.
Yes. Good, very good point, Shorty.
Indeed, he always does.
That's a deadline, man. Listen, I don't agree with that. I think football is a harder
What do
sport to
you
play.
think has caused the All-Star games and these other sports to become non-entertaining? The players?
No, I think it's the league in general. I think the NFL has gone to safety, right, and to protecting their players, and
Yeah, but the NFL didn't tell players in the
they
Pro
don't want
Bowl,
people to
that
get hurt, so
first
they
Pro
went to
Bowl we
flag
watched.
football.
They didn't tell players in the first Pro Bowl we watched where they were two-hand touching each other to do that. The players did it out of respect for one another. Like, I'm not going to injure you.
It's
That's
not
what it
just
became.
respect for one another. Like in an NBA All-Star game, the players don't want to get embarrassed. It's their own ego as
Yeah, but
well.
Sean Taylor was taking heads off of people in Pro Bowls.
Yeah, and the NFL didn't want that to happen anymore.
I don't think the NFL
didn't.
is the reason that these players quit playing. I think they just don't want to risk their own personal
It's
health.
the overall culture that the NFL has established.
And the NHL does not give a shit about risking their own personal health. They know the fans bought tickets. That's what
So
it
you're
is to them.
saying NHL players should get hazard pay?
I think NHL players are willing to put the most on the line. That's what it is.
Is that a headline or a deadline for you? I think it's a complete deadline. It's not. I can't even entertain it. I think
NHL players should make more in general because let's be honest, they definitely get a much lower percentage of player revenue or of team revenue
That's
than
like
every other sport.
That's like saying that somebody who works construction should make more than a CEO for a Fortune 500 company. They put in a lot more effort. They show up to work every day. It's the same thing.
No, the revenue percent is lower for an NHL player. It doesn't matter how much money the team or the league makes. The NHL players make less of it. So yes, they should be paid more. They make less of the owner's money. So yes, that should change.
And that's on the players too.
Yeah,
that's on the players too.
Fucking hold out.
You have a shitty union if that's the case. But I just because the way you originally framed it was because they show up for every game and they're willing to put their body.
They play for the fans who pay for the tickets, right?
Yeah, but they also play for themselves. They make a pretty solid wage.
Like you could go watch 30 Lakers games and you might see LeBron play 12 of them. I mean, it's just nonsense, man. You spend an entire most people spend a paycheck to go watch that game. And LeBron sits out because he's old. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, not enough people are spending money to go see a hockey game either way. So
no, that's true. Like I said, the revenue you would have to exclude. Wait, he says he was responding to T. Okay, next. Regardless of the Ben Johnson hire, the Bears are more likely to underachieve than overachieve.
That's a headline, I think. That's a headline. I mean, tough division, you second-year quarterback, you still have very many question marks. I mean, right now, today, it's a headline. You still got too many question marks at key spots along your offense and defensive line. Those are what's going to impact winning. We just saw that in the Super Bowl. So they got a lot of work to do to be competitive in the toughest division in football. So, yeah, it's a headline, man.
Yeah, I hate doing this, man. I do, because I'm going to catch so much grief for this. But we've talked about this, Dustin. We were doing this last year. Like, Caleb's being put into the best situation, a rookie quarter, yada, 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 yada. And now Ben Johnson's getting the best thing a coach could ever, yada yada yada.
We tend to get
It's
over our
it's the
skis.
same damn team. It's the same damn people running the same damn team. I don't care what situation a person's being hired into because it's the same person that hired him that finds a way to fuck it up. That's what bothers me about it, man. So
Listen,
I'm gonna say headline.
uh, listen, I do think that there is a culture shift happening, and I've rarely thought that in my time
I have
watching
to
the
see
Bears.
it, man. I have to
You
see
know,
it.
I 100% have to see it, but I do believe there is a different thing happening in terms of the infrastructure that's being put in place at Hollis Hall. So the results need to show on the field, and there's going to be a lot of things that go into that. But I think there is reason for optimism, I guess. Is
Well, and
what,
I also said this, and I said this in the chat in CSP earlier when they were talking about kind of something similar, not the same exact thing. I think this. Last year, the Bears were 4-2. They actually had a good start, so they were doing what we expected them to do. They lost the Colts game, but we still had them losing 2 games up to that point. The Hail Mary broke these guys' spirit, and then we saw a whole lot of business decisions, right? I mean, we talked about this all
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
With a Ben Johnson running your team, I don't think you're going to see that. I don't think you're going to see that. I don't think you're going to see the business decisions. I think when something goes wrong, Ben Johnson's going to remind these guys to fucking pick their heads up and play football.
Yeah,
That's what a leader
that
does.
culture shift should
Yeah.
happen. But again, you're in the toughest division in football. Still a lot of weaknesses on this team, and as Shorty says right here, that is our problem, Brandon. We always give ourselves way too much hope every offseason. Generally, me and you don't do that, Brandon. We got sucked in this past offseason. I'm not doing it again. I've said this before.
Nope.
I am going to. You gotta show me. Don't tell me about the labor. Show me the baby.
No, I'm going to be honest. I'm going
That's
to be
what I
honest with you, Dustin and Shorty. Even with the hire of Ben Johnson, when the Bears over under comes out, I would bet the under. That's who I am now. Like that's who I was before. I allowed myself. I said 10 wins last year. I look like an idiot. I'm not doing that again. I'm staying grounded. I know how this team operates, right? Most importantly, I know how this organization operates, and I would take the under on whatever number they throw at me next year. And their schedule got harder, Dustin. It's harder. They're playing the Eagles, so you got that on your list.
Yeah, you brought up the Colts game, and I just wanted to touch on that real quick and saying that that Colts loss showed all of the issues and deficiencies with this roster, and I really wanted Shane Waldron to be and Matt Eberflus to be fired after that game because there's no way they should have lost that game if they were actually competent at their jobs. It wouldn't have happened. But you saw the deficiencies and the flaws in this roster, and then we had a couple of games against some cupcakes, and it kind of boosted us up a little bit. I mean, I
And then
don't
you
think
had a very winnable game against the Commanders, who were
that
an
that
NFC Championship
yeah,
team.
that Hail Mary broke your back for sure. And then all those flaws that we saw early on in the season against, okay competition, not even good competition, they started showing their heads really consistently. The inability to stop the run, the inability to establish the run, the unwillingness to even go to the run, like all those things just showed their face for the rest of the season, man. So you hope that things are going to change, but again, I'm not living on hope.
Well, yeah,
I want
I
I gotta
guess what I
see.
was pointing out is like the Bears. We were 4-2, and we had a team that was in the NFC Championship on their heels for 2 more plays. I think all we had to do was play 2 more plays, and it's this organization, the dysfunction that you only find here with our Chicago Bears, where a player's looking at the sideline, right? A guy who I was concerned about from week 1 of this season, man. A guy's not paying attention to the game. That happens here. That doesn't happen other places. Like that
Again,
happens
you,
here in Chicago.
you hope that the Ben Johnson hire changes that part of it, the discipline part of it, the preparation part of it, the accountability part of it.
Yeah.
That's what you got to hope for, but it doesn't mean you have to bank on it. You can hope for it as a fan, but banking on it is not logical.
And and
That's all.
if you process this in reverse, let's say Ben Johnson fails miserably. Let's say we come out and say they're going to win 10, 11 games and Ben Johnson falls flat on his face. At the end of the season, we'll be saying, what the hell made me think otherwise? The Bears had another rookie coach once again. Like it's a dysfunctional organization
Yeah.
who somehow corrupts the minds of these guys they hire. They turn them into literally just doormats, right? So it's like you have to remind yourself we're still cheering for the same damn Bears here, right? All right, so I'm going to say headline for that just the same as you, man. All right, so less than 17 players, 17 less than 17 players have played an entire 82 games for 3 straight seasons in the NBA. The NBA should shorten the season or eliminate the ability to rest players.
Oh, I think they should do both. I've been saying shortened season for 15 years. I mean, the 82 games is a lot of games. The back to backs.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
too many. It's too many.
yeah, it is. I mean,
It's
shit.
dragged out.
When I play a season in 2K, I'm dropping it down to 56
He's he's what's
every time, every time.
what's the what's the thing you do where the automate where you just like what is it where you simulate? You
Simulate the
simulate like
season.
30 games of your season. Yeah, I used to
Yeah,
do that a lot.
yeah. I mean, so it's like it's too much on the players, and if you want to put the best product out, listen. A lot of these things are staring the NBA right in the face, and they have for a long time. This is clearly a headline. You have a product that is based around star players, and the less that these star players play, the less valuable your league is. Period. End of story. So you should be doing everything possible to get them as
To
much exposure to
monetize
your
this more.
fans as possible. That should be your entire goal. And shortening the season would go a long way into working that out. They already put the rule in place where you can't make all NBA teams if you don't play a certain level of games, and then they backpedaled on that pretty quickly.
Well,
Like,
it must be 72
and these players
because
get
I
paid.
noticed the players that didn't play 82 games, but it didn't go like 82, 81, 80, 70. It went from the players that didn't play 82 games all played 72 or less. So 72 has to be that number that you're talking about. It's got to be that number.
I
It's
think
70.
it's actually 65 is the number they came
Is
out
it
with.
okay? So
Yeah.
this is something you knew. Shorty's throwing a chat. I don't want to get too far into this because we're straying away from the Bears stuff. If Ben fails miserably and the team ruins Caleb, I'm done with this team. By the way, they just raised ticket. Yeah, we saw this, man. Our guy, our other half, our better half, I guess, on Four Star Chicago Sports did do. They beat this up a little bit on their episode yesterday, but yes, the Bears just raised prices on tickets. I,
I
I was
mean,
thinking. I was thinking to myself when I saw this, like, is this something George thought he could get away with after Virginia, but after Virginia died? Is this something he
it's
would
not
have?
that
Is this
deep,
a
bro.
stunt he would have pulled?
It's
Yeah.
listen, any business you're in raises prices. And listen, I get fucking messages from Hulu, Netflix, fucking Peacock. All it's going up. It used to happen with cable. They'll
Rent,
all the price of the price of
rent.
gas has gone up. The price of milk is gone. It costs us more money to give you this service, and everybody always finds a way to justify that. I mean, the tickets prices will never go down or stay the same, shorty. It will consistently be more and more. And what's fucked up is that people will consistently find
Bye.
ways to pay
Yeah.
regardless of any. And so once they see that, then they know they can keep doing it. It's on us, really, right? When the cable company this is a 15-year-old reference at this point. Like when the cable company jacks up your prices and you don't call and say, I'm not paying that shit, cancel my service, then they know next time they do it, you're just gonna say okay as well. It's the same concept in any business, you know. So and they will continue to go up, and Bears fans and will continue to pay, and that's just what it is. You know, I manage a Lou Malnati's. The prices of those pizzas are high, and they continue to raise them, and people continue to buy them, and that's just what it is. And people will continue to because it is a staple of Chicago, right? Just like the Bears are.
Yeah, and they were speculating. The 2 seats cost me 1046 down from 1246. They were speculating. A gentleman called in to the ESPN 1000 today, and he was talking about how it cost him and his dad 30 years ago or something, like $450 for season tickets. And they were saying when they opened this, if they had a new stadium, season tickets could go anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000. Like And somebody's gonna,
Yeah,
like you said, Dustin, somebody's gonna pay it. Somebody's gonna
and
be
I'll
like, yeah,
and I'll
sure.
say this to Shorty here, man. Like, I'm sure your house is cheaper in Atlanta than it is to own that same level of house in Chicago. It's going to be about the market you're in, and it's going to be about the loyalty of that fan base. The Falcons, I guarantee you, do not have the list of people waiting to have season tickets that the Chicago Bears do. It's just not even close. The demand for it is nowhere near as high.
Well, and I agree with. I mean, the bigger the market, the more these things, the more these stadiums, these teams. Like he's hitting it on the head here, man. And he actually says $13. A beer is $14 at Soldier Field. $14. A beer
Yeah.
is $14 at Soldier Field. I mean, so if you want to go, you exclude the ticket price is not what you're paying to go watch a football game. That's a core, like, you know what I mean. If you want
Mhm.
to, if you want to take a kid to a game and get like your ballpark hot dog and a soda, you're spending $35 for that kid. Dude, I
And
mean,
listen, I'm
it's
not
crazy.
justifying that's bullshit. I'm not justifying it. All I'm saying is that's just kind of the way it is. I'll say this: Chicago sports teams in general, across the board, have no right. They have no right to tell me you got to go get this different cable service to watch the Bulls play or go buy
Oh,
a
it's
digital
crazy.
antenna. They have no right to charge Cubs fans more every year to go to the games when they're not spending money on players to make their team competitive. It's
They have no
Chicago
right to
fans,
ask for public funding for their stadiums.
Chicago
Get out of here.
fans continue to bend over for these guys, and they know they can just keep getting away with it. I'm not with it. I'm not supporting you if you're not putting a good product on the field. I'll stop watching the Bears. I'm not watching the Bulls. I'm taking a stand against it. And it's not going to make a difference, but at least I know I'm not investing my time and energy and money into something that's not investing that same thing back into me.
Yeah,
That's what it comes
and
down to.
and I mean, David Kaplan says it all the time, guys. Soldier Field, and Wrigley Field, they're ATMs. That's what they are. And like I just said, this is the most remarkable part. You wouldn't, Shorty. I'll say this: you won't see this by another owner in another city. You can't break the record for the worst record of all time in MLB history, and then ask your city to buy you a new stadium. The people, the citizens of your city, they're asking for public funding. This White Sox to Reinsdorf for this stadium.
Did you
Have you lost your goddamn mind?
did
Like,
you
are you
see that?
insane?
Listen, and they just approved a $7 billion thing for the United Center between the Wertzes and the Reinsdorfs to build up the area around the United Center. And apparently this is supposed to be good, but I don't trust it. I don't. Apparently they're supposed to build a theater and housing and all that, and kind of clean up the area around the United Center. But like that's a lot of money that's going towards that. And is it going to be for the fans, the people that actually give you the money
Yeah, I
to
was gonna say,
operate your
who's
business?
paying for that? Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
be this. I don't. It's crazy, man, and it's frustrating, and as a like, we love our sports, we love our teams, but I'm going to tell you this right now, Shorty. I don't ever go into a Bears season anticipating to go to a game. I never do. I will gladly watch on my couch at home and not give them an extra $1,500 for a single Sunday. Um, and
Got more
and to be
headlines?
and to be honest, yeah, and to be honest, that you get a better vantage point from watching on TV, anyways. Um, the next is, I guess this is a good subject to kind of jump into this. The MLB should implement a salary floor. And I'm looking at you, Reinsdorf. I mean, this is you can't have a team, man. You can't have a league where the Dodgers are spending $1 billion to compete, and then you got a guy over here who will only spend 50 million just to what did he say? I just want to. What did the Milwaukee Buck or Brewers owner said? Some is my job to win a championship, or is it to make sure that a family can come have a good time on a Sunday? That's what literally what he said. The answer, Hood said this. Hood said the best way I could have said it better. The answer to that question is yes. That's what the answer is, man. How
Yeah.
could you even present that as an option? You should be doing both. You should be striving for
Well,
both.
one begets the other.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody's
You want to go
going
watch
to
your team
enjoy a
win.
shitty
Right.
team
Yeah.
play baseball or football or whatever. That's not. enjoyable if you actually care about the product that's being put in front of you. Whether a salary cap floor, I mean, and listen, I'll say headline. I mean, I think there needs to be more structure in general to even the playing field. I think baseball, but
That's the worst.
for as long as I've been alive, like it's just like it's the market disparity is just so drastic, and there's no real no real fix to it. I mean, they've done little band-aid stuff throughout my time following it, but if you create more structure, you're going to create more with the salary. You're going to create more parity within your league, which is what fans want to see. You know, if you don't want to see the same teams every year competing for the championship just because they can buy it. But at the same time, Reinsdorf has the ability to spend that money. And why he's choosing not to is it's a questionable thing. And then that question should then be, should you be allowed to continue to operate this team if you're not going to spend the money to compete?
Should Manfred be able to tell these guys who literally he works for them, but should he be able to tell these guys, kick rocks, sell this team in? We can't, you're not
it's got to be detrimental. You got to be conduct detrimental to the league type of stuff is what would force an owner out in any sport. And I mean, is that detrimental to the league? When you have a team that's in the third biggest market, your AL team is in the third biggest market of the United States, and you're drawing no fans from that does hurt the MLB, Brandon. If you're not drawing that demographic and from that pool, which is one of the biggest ones that you have in your league, you're not drawing a fan base from it. You're not drawing revenue from it. That is detrimental to your overall league in terms of market sharing. 100% it is.
Shorty says, you are correct, though. Property taxes start at $8,000 up there. Ours, he's talking about Atlanta, 1.5 acres for $1,200. Jesus, man. It's got to make you think. I drove up there specifically to watch 3 games. What a dummy. It's not, if it's something you want to do and you're taking your kid, it's just, you know what you're going to pay. I wouldn't call you a dummy, Shorty, because you're aware of what you're going to be spending. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're kind of biting the bullet. You know, it's for the experience. It's for the camaraderie of the fans that you're sitting next to, the people you go with, the memory you leave with. Those things matter. But those memories, anytime I've gone to a football game, anytime I've gone to a basketball game, a baseball game, those memories are always better if my team competes and wins. My memories are always better.
I actually went, guys, the last 2 Bowls games I've been to were two of the top 5 largest deficits, the largest number they've lost by. 2 of the top 5.
And you're checked out by the second quarter.
It's like you want to just go wander around and get the hell out of here. Yeah. So yeah,
that is okay, but it's not that cool. It's gonna entertain me. I'm here for what you're putting on the court. That's why I'm there.
So yeah, I think we both say kind of headline, guys. If there's a way that can make this work, there should be a salary floor in the MLB. You should be required to spend a certain amount of money on your team to win, right? The NBA also, this one we kind of beat up this. The NBA All-Star format will change from U.S. first world players. I think that's a headline. I think they're going to do it. They were asking many of players this weekend. I think they will.
I guess it's a headline, man. And I'll just say this: the other find a solution and put it in place and stop fucking changing it. Every time I watch the All-Star game, it's a different format. There's a new rules. Well, you got to score this many more points than the other team within this period of time.
Now the players only get to play 7 minutes. I didn't know what the hell is that.
just get it down to a science that works. Find a way to motivate the players to actually compete in it and do it. Otherwise, scrap it altogether because it does hurt your brand when you put shitty product out in front of people. That entire weekend, there's nothing going on but the
ratings are. There's no point. I don't even know why they're doing it. They're losing money. Why do they even keep doing this shit, man?
Yeah.
But all right, this next one, man, very simple, and I want to hear what you think, Shorty. Very simple, but probably the one that I had to think about the most. And I think we're going to disagree here. The Detroit Lions window has passed.
Yeah, that's a deadline.
It's a headline.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that when you said we were going to disagree. That's a deadline. I got another, just the same way I got to see it with the Bears in terms of are they turning a corner and moving in a winning direction? I got to see that from the Lions, man. I mean, they still got a lot of talented players, and that at the end of the day, those are the guys that are going to play the football games. Who are they losing player wise, Brandon?
This is where I think they fall.
Who are they losing player wise?
Well, they're losing the person who made Jared Goff a quality football player. That's what I think. I think they lost that. That's what I think they lost. I think they
Still
lost
got those two running backs.
Jared Goff being paid what he is now is a lot more negligent
It's
than
going to
it
be harder to
was a year
swallow.
ago.
Yeah.
And have they even hired an offensive coordinator? They took the guy from the Broncos, right?
What up, Foster? How you doing, boss?
Oh yeah, and let me add this to it, guys. They hired John Morton or Horton. They hired the guy who wasn't calling plays for Sean Payton in Denver. I mean, Sean Payton calls plays. They hired a guy whose first time play calling, I believe, right? This Detroit Lions team to coach Jared Goff. I don't know. I suspect this team loses way more. I'm going to take the under on their win loss or on their wins.
It'll probably be 10 and a
take the
half
under.
or 11, I would
I'm going
imagine.
to take the under.
I haven't seen it. It's probably
And
out
and I don't think they compete. There's no way this team beats an Eagles. They're not going to compete for a championship.
Brendan, let me just say this. I have supreme confidence in Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is a guy who is a leader in that building. The players love him. They will run through a wall for him, and he knows how to utilize that to get the most out of his players. So and he knows how to utilize that to get the most out of his coaches too. So that's the one thing you really got to consider when you're predicting the Detroit Lions' demise. Are you saying that Dan Campbell is a knucklehead, basically? Is he the guy that we thought he was at first, or is he the guy when he's talking about biting off kneecaps, or is he the guy that has taken the Detroit Lions to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row and should have won, or not? Do you think
the Lions
divisional this past year? They really should have won both of those games.
Do you think they end up in the NFC Championship, and do you think they win the division?
I'm not ready to predict divisions, Brandon. There's a lot of stuff that needs to play out.
I think the Vikings and Packers are both on a more of an uphill.
I can see the Vikings. I can see the Vikings doing this, boss. I see that with the Vikings a lot more than the Lions.
I think Kevin O'Connell's a better coach than Dan Campbell, and I think he will show that in his.
He's certainly a better offensive mind than Dan Campbell, that's for sure. And the Lions do.
He's the Ben Johnson, right?
But if you're talking about the Vikings, dude. The Vikings are about to let Sam Darnold walk the way it's sounding.
Yeah, I would.
And okay, you're starting a rookie quarterback next year, JJ McCarthy. Now, if there's a coach that can get the most out of their rookie quarterback, it's Kevin O'Connell. I do believe.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of difference.
I don't believe in JJ McCarthy at all. I
didn't believe in Sam Darnold before the season started. Nobody did.
Yeah.
I can't. Kevin O'Connell is the Ben Johnson of that team. And they didn't lose that. So they didn't lose that. I don't know. I very much see this Lions team declining, man. I do. And I don't think they get back to an FC Championship game. I don't think that happens for the next.
I think they got too many talented young players, Brandon, to say their window is closing. That's just an asinine statement.
We will see. We will see. There's a couple guys who said something about this while we were talking about it.
Shorty said because they lost their OC in DC.
Oh, and then it's just everybody's hoping each other well, guys. That's nice.
Yeah, Shorty and Foster are just talking about being old, basically.
Hey, so are we, man.
Yeah, I'm getting there too.
This one, very quick. Chiefs and Eagles will and should open the next season, considering they're on the schedule with each other next year. They're scheduled to play each other next season.
Listen, the NFL likes to save certain games for like that middle of the season highlight thing. You know, like they're going to be able to find a good matchup for the Eagles, and
Commanders.
It'll be. And generally, Brandon, if you think back, and this,
it's going to be the Chiefs or the Commanders, dude.
Brandon, it might be a rule here that it's always within conference. They're never the Super Bowl champion is never opening the season against if they're an NFC team, they don't open the season
Oh,
against the AFC
I didn't
team.
think there was. I thought it had to be the team that won, and it didn't matter anything else.
I cannot recall a
I thought
time
the
when
Lions played the Chiefs like 2 years ago, dude.
oh yeah, you're right. That did just
No,
happen.
the only rule is the Super Bowl winner plays. That's it. And it's not even a rule. I googled it. It says it almost always happens, but there's no like written. It's not anywhere. There's no law.
Shorty, hold on real quick. Shorty says he just lost his grandmother. I remember she was having issues. He was saying that's why Foster was asking. Didn't mean to make light of it, man. You know, I just that was all in fun. My apologies. Sorry for your
Yeah,
loss.
very sorry to hear that,
Yeah,
Shorty. Very, very sorry to hear that. You know, obviously, not a whole lot words can do. Only time, but we feel for you, man. And I apologize. And like Dustin said, very unaware of that. It's not
yeah.
something we're trying to.
Hopefully she lived a very good life. Hopefully she lived a very good life. That's all you can hope for because we're all gonna go. But sorry for your loss, man. And hope you're able to get some sleep.
So you think Eagles Commanders would be more of a like I don't know. I'm looking at
I
I
think
looked at the
that's a
Eagles.
that's the game. I mean,
Well, because that was the NFC Championship game.
yeah, Schefter said, and it's a divisional game. Schefter said that he would bank on it being the Bears. That would be stupid of the NFL, I think, because the Bears. I don't know if listen,
Not a big
they'll have
appeal.
hype around them for sure, but I mean, are you going to get a good game? I don't know. The Chiefs Eagles would be interesting. I think the Commanders Eagles would be more interesting. But again, like divisional games, do they save those for later down the line? But I'll say deadline to it being the Chiefs Eagles. I think that's something they would want to make us wait for a little longer, Bren.
Well, and we're too. I gotta disagree with Adam Schefter, man. We're so inside this bubble here. Like people are gonna think that the appeal of the Bears Eagles is much better than the rest of the NFL fans think it is. If you're not in the city of Chicago and you're looking at the Eagles Bears on next year's schedule, you're thinking the Eagles are really gonna fuck the Bears up next year. That's what you're
I'm in the
thinking.
city of Chicago, and I'm thinking
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
thing.
me too. Yeah, me too. That's what like Shorty said earlier, man. We'll always have this false sense of hope. We're always
Yeah,
gonna have this, and the
I
Bears.
really hope it's not the Bears. I hope the
Bears
Bears
fans.
get a little bit of time before they play a
Yeah,
team.
no, they're gonna get murdered. I don't want to start with that team, the best
Yeah,
roster in football. Um, all right, the NFL salary crap.
sorry,
The NFL salary cap has increased by 132 million dollars over the last decade. Okay, over the last from 2015 to 2025, it's increased by 132 million dollars. The NFL will reach $1 billion deal before the MLB.
No. I mean, if you look at the trends, it's not even close in terms of the amount of money. And then the other
It's
thing,
raising much quicker. It's raising in percent much quicker.
well, for sure, but it's also not raising in term. The baseball union tends to be the best in terms of getting these payers played. Payers played.
Yeah,
I just did it too. We're
it's
fucking up.
getting late.
payers the payers played with the salary crap. So listen, no, I don't. I think it'll happen in baseball first because the other thing you have to consider, man, is the salary cap in football. You know, versus a team that wants to spend in baseball can find a way to spend as much as they want. So it'll happen in baseball first.
I actually agree with you. I do. Like it was something I don't know. Remember who was talking about? I was watching a podcast where somebody brought it up. Um, but the thing for me is the MLB is just so close. You know what I mean? Otani just got that deal. Like what he was 200 million away from it. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
it was so
It's going to
close.
happen in the MLB first. I thought it
But
would
the
happen.
increase over the last 2 seasons in the cap in the
Oh, dude,
NFL
it's not even close.
is historic.
But
It's like
Brandon,
insane.
you have to keep in mind that the NFL fights the players tooth and nail every CBA to give them as little as possible.
Yeah, the cap's
and
being raised.
and they don't have guaranteed money in the NFL the way they do in baseball too, which is a fucking crime.
They also you don't typically get a 9-year contract in the NFL, man. The health is just not. It's you know what I mean. You can't give somebody a 7-year deal in the NFL.
Shorty,
Like,
glad we could help, man. Hope you're able to get some sleep, and we're here for you. But you need anything, let us know. You got my email.
Yeah, Shorty, thanks as always for joining us, man. Again, very, very sorry. My thoughts and prayers go out to you and all your family, man. And if you don't end up getting some sleep, man, we'll be here for a little longer.
Hopefully not much longer, but yeah.
Oh, all right. After reaching the Super Bowl in just 2 seasons as the 49ers head coach, second year coach Jim Harbaugh of the Los Angeles Chargers will reach the Super Bowl in 2025.
You're tugging at my heartstrings, Brandon. You're doing this on purpose to get me
I
on the
know,
record.
and it's
To get me on
if
the
there's a
record saying some
and we
crazy
both. I
shit.
mean, I've agreed with you, man. If there's a guy who can do it, who can turn a program around so quickly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
He's known for this. This is
I
his
will
thing.
never bet against the Harbaughs. Like just in general, but Jim especially, like, and that team has the potential to get better. I mean, I thought that they got into the playoffs and kind of really went out with a whimper, which is uncharacteristic of a Harbaugh team. But you can see that there's still some things that they need to get in place defensively, and they need a more consistent running game, a really stud running back.
And
And
a
I
number
think
one receiver.
I think they can get one in this draft potentially, the Chargers. And I mean the number one receiver for sure. I mean, McConkey showed himself to be a damn good player, but you want a different physical type, I think, on the outside. And Justin Herbert is a fucking slinger, man. I mean, honest in terms of a throwing of the football, I think it's Burrow and Herbert are my two favorite to watch in terms of how they let that thing fly, dude. So you have a lot of ingredients there, and Jim Harbaugh is just an insane person. He's
Yeah,
so competitive, and his teams take on his identity very quickly. So I would not put it past him to be in the Super Bowl. I'm going to say deadline because the odds on it are so low.
it's
But
1 in 32, but
yeah,
or 1 in 16, I guess I should say, because I said we'll make it to the Super Bowl. But I will say
Foster wants
this:
us to go till 2 a.m.
another thing that's strange, man, is like we talked. You heard so much about C.J. Stroud. When you go back and look at Justin Herbert's numbers his rookie year, I mean, like he did the same
Unbelievable.
damn he did the same damn thing.
Well, no, he did it better. He did it better,
Yeah.
to be
I-
honest.
and and it looked smoother too, man. Honestly, like Stroud did it, but it's never pretty. But I, Herbert made it look like he'd been playing for years.
Listen, you're still in the same division as the Chiefs. I mean, it seems like maybe something might be happening. Maybe the Chargers can
We're
overtake
in a
it.
rough division, top to bottom. The
I
Broncos are
feel
going to be a
like
better football team,
I feel like you got to win your division before you're winning a Super Bowl, and like that's a tough thing to do in the AFC West when you have the Chiefs there. It just is.
and the Broncos on the way up for sure. Um,
Sure.
I don't know why I'm jumping from sport to sport. I guess it's just the way I wrote these.
How many
This
more
one,
days you got?
two.
Oh, Jesus. All right, let's go.
Luca will
Rapid
opt
fire.
out. Luca will opt out after 2025.
Deadline. Not even close.
Think
No.
LeBron will be gone and he'll stay,
Luka will be a Laker for the next 10
and
years.
LeBron will.
Oh, LeBron's old. LeBron's going away after within a year or two. I mean, like one way or the other. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. It's
I
Luka's
wouldn't
team.
want to. I wouldn't want to play with Bronny.
Uh, I mean, Bronny don't really play, so it don't matter. But
Yeah.
Luka will be a Laker for probably the rest of his career. This guy wants to be in one place, and you saw what he did in Dallas and how much he endeared himself to those fans. He'll do the same thing in LA, and LA is going to treat him a lot better than Dallas did too.
I asked because Stephen A. Smith predicted that he'll opt out of his country.
Well, if he opts out, it'll be to get a massive deal from the Lakers.
Where he doesn't pay a massive amount of taxes to live.
Yeah, I guess you got to consider that, but the amount you also got to consider the amount you make up for that in endorsement deals and getting in movies and getting in commercial. Like LA, the market is just huge. There's so many opportunities that will make you so much more money.
He's got a shoe, right, Luka? Everybody has a shoe, right?
Nike, yeah.
I mean,
he's Nike guy.
McClung probably has a fucking shoe. After while we're on the subject, after missing. Now this statistic, man, even I respect LeBron. You know that, Dustin. I've never disrespected the guy. Like as much as I'm not his biggest fan, but I never disrespect his abilities. This statistic, though, is something I consistently brought up about LeBron James over the course of his career. It's what's bothered me most about him as a player.
Is it the amount of fans he's had thrown out of games?
After missing today, He did pass the 40 after 40 today, but he also, guess what else he did? After missing his 21st consecutive game winning slash tying shot, LeBron is behind both Kobe and Jordan on the all time player list.
Uh, Listen, man,
Why is this
Jordan,
guy so bad when it matters most?
Jordan said it best. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. LeBron has always been willing to take it. And there's times where he's going to come through, and there's times when he's not. The one thing
He
with
passes a
LeBron,
lot too, man.
yeah, for sure, he makes the right basketball play. Generally, situationally, he's one of the smartest basketball players I've ever seen. It's really impressive to watch. But the thing with LeBron's stats, man, is they're all going to be inflated by averages because he's got so much more data to pull from because he's been in the league forever. He's played so many games.
Well,
He's
that I
been
mean,
in these
but think about
situations
that.
more than most players ever will be in their lives, bro.
Does that seem like a lot though? 21 shot of game-winning shot attempts, or game-winning or tying. So game-winning or tying shot attempts in 5 years. Does that seem like a lot?
Yeah, it is. That is a high number.
I think
That
he's passed a lot, to be honest. I've always ridiculed him for passing up on the final shot. I've done this a lot.
well,
He
that's
passes the ball a lot.
I've always thought that was an easy way out in terms of ridiculing LeBron James because if he's making that pass 9 times out of 10, it was the right decision. There's been a couple times where he's passed when he shouldn't have, for sure. And in big situations in the finals when he
Where
was with the Heat,
and this
I
there was
remember a
times
couple of
where
those.
he did it where I was rooting for him and it pissed me off. And I
Yeah,
was thinking to myself, you're LeBron James. Who are you passing the ball to that should take the shot over you? It just doesn't make
but
sense, man.
there's countless times that he's put his team on his back and carried them too.
Oh, of course. I'm not taking anything away from what he's done. And like I said, man, he can sit in his chair in front of these guys in front of these cameras and say, I'm the best basketball player alive. He can say that stuff. I'm the best basketball player in the world. Then take the damn shot. I
Well,
mean,
that's not really ever been his game. He is not that person. He doesn't have that go-to shot really, especially anymore. He at age 40, he doesn't have it. Like LeBron and Kobe always found a way to get to their spots and get their patented shot off in an advantageous situation. LeBron's never really had that shot to even go to. So it's a little different because he's so versatile. He's never like really honed in on one thing and said, I'm going to be my absolute best at this particular move. You know what I'm saying? So that helps in those situations an awful lot.
I hope before he hangs it up, man, he breaks that cycle 21 shots in a row of missing that
I mean,
game.
LeBron is who he is at this point, man, and he's a shell of what he has been, but it's
I would
still quite
imagine
impressive what he is.
knowing he knows he's aware of that number, man. And when those situations present, with the opportunities present themselves, his team's going to make sure he's able to try to take that shot because he's going to want to fix that before he walks away from the game. That's not something you want to leave with. You know what I mean? If he said, say he goes 0 for 30 on game winning shots to finish
Well,
his career.
the thing I love about LeBron is he probably don't give a shit about that. And he's just still going to do the thing that makes the most sense in that moment of that particular basketball play, whether it's make the pass to Luca or whether,
Well, yeah, now he's
whether
got a
it's
guy
go
who
into the
should be.
post.
Now he's got a guy who should be taking that shot over him, to be
Yeah,
honest.
for sure. He's just going to make the right basketball play for his team to win that basketball game. One thing you can't say about LeBron is that he's not a competitor. LeBron is an ultimate competitor. I mean, if you think otherwise, then you just haven't really been paying attention to his career.
Yeah, no, I think the competitive drive is part of the reason he's taken 21 game tying or winning shots.
Yeah.
Like, and Luca, I'm gonna be honest, man. Moving forward, if that presents itself, he should pass the ball to Luca's pretty. That's kind of Luca's thing, man. Of all the players in the NBA today, that might be the guy I choose to take that shot. Honestly, him or maybe like Kyrie, the two players who were on the same team that made it to the finals last year, both very clutch.
SGA.
Why he's a phenomenal player. Haven't watched him too much, and I especially haven't watched him late in the game. And I don't know if like
He's just really
I don't know
good
if I've
at
ever
getting
seen him.
those spots,
I don't
man.
know if I've ever seen him take that shot. I don't know.
No, he does all the time. And Brandon, you can't. neglect the 4 plays before that last shot either that kept them in the game, or you know what I'm saying, or took the lead on the possession before. Like those shots matter just as
Well, and
much.
I'm
They just
spoiled,
don't
man.
happen when the time's
I'm
expiring.
spoiled. I grew up watching a guy who took and made that shot most of the time.
Yeah, and by that standard, our expectations are completely fucking skewed.
Yeah.
And that's why Jordan is the best player of all time, because he's created an expectation in people that this is what the best basketball player should be. And no
Yes.
one
The
has
standard
ever
is winning.
been, no one
Nothing
was,
less.
no one was Jordan before Jordan, and no one's been Jordan after. Kobe got close. So like that's how good Jordan was, that he created a standard that you can't live up to.
Yeah, and I just saw it, man. I forget what Kobe's numbers. Kobe's game-winning shot numbers are like outrageously good.
Mm-hmm.
He was like 20 of 30 or 25 of 33. He was it was a ridiculous number how many times he made that shot. Oh, all right, man. So, want to get to our Thursday theatrical thoughts, the thing we've never done here on this show, man.
Thursday's
But
theatrical thoughts.
had some fun with it.
We got to get some like
Ooh.
graphics
I know.
going.
I was thinking about that today. I didn't have time, man, but I am going to do that. I actually am. Yes, this is another segment, guys.
It'll look better than the one you sent earlier, right?
And me and Dustin both love. Since the one thing me and Dustin are able to discuss since the day we've met outside of sports is film. Always loved film. I studied film for a year and a half in school, guys. Dustin, I think the first thing we ever did outside of working with each other was seeing a movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, our first date. I remember.
Yeah. Reno 911, the movie. It's a phenomenal movie too. Yeah. So yeah,
assholes.
we both recently
More
watched.
assholes for your suck fest.
Hey, assholes. We both recently watched the remake, guys, of Nosferatu, right? Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu, which is a story that came before Dracula in film, but very, very similar. It's a slightly different take on the story of Dracula. Dustin, do you want to kick this off? I'm going to start.
No, I want to hear. Listen, we both watched the movie. We both have very differing thoughts on it, from what I can tell. And I wouldn't even call it a remake as much as a complete reimagining, because the story was there and it was nowhere near as intricate as I think Robert Eggers made it. I mean, at its core, it is just what it is, and when you boil it down to what it is at its pure form. But I thought that Eggers took it to a whole nother level, and you didn't seem to be as impressed by it. And I'm really interested to hear why.
Yeah, and actually, man, I will say this: before me and my girlfriend here had discussed going to see it for a while, and then I saw that it was already available streaming, but then we were kind of seeing if it would. Like, I don't want to spend $24 on a fucking movie.
It's on Peacock now.
We're trying.
I just saw it on Peacock.
Now it's going to be free or something.
Right, the day after you paid for it.
Yeah, so that's what we were waiting for, and I know that typically does happen, man. It's not very. It doesn't take a long time for movies to go from rentable, viable to free,
which is a very good thing about living in this day and age, by the way.
Yeah. So we were waiting on that. But while I was waiting on it, man, one day she wasn't here. She was out with friends. I watched 3/4 of the original Nosferatu. I watched the silent film Nosferatu. It had color, but it was silent. Silent film. It's the same story, man. It is depicted the same exact way. He obviously has a much more artistic view, and it's a much more elaborate version of the story because
100%.
You can talk in the movie. And silent films are just tough in general to endure at this day and age, because not only it wasn't like Charlie Chaplin's silent film where it's just like all motion and action. They talk to each other. The scene freezes, and then they put up the words. Yeah, and it's just like, oh God, I can only endure this for so long. But I didn't. I kept watching. It is very similar. It's very similar. It's very similar to the Dracula story, like I said.
It's very similar to Bram Stoker's Dracula, for sure.
Yeah. So this is what I'm going to say about it. First off, man, Bill Skarsgård, couldn't tip my hat enough. This guy never gets enough credit. When I suggested that he should win a Best Actor for Pennywise, people he played a clown, a killer clown, dude. Like, he played it phenomenally. and
Yeah,
he creeped the hell out of the viewer who's watching the screen, right?
which is the ultimate
When
goal
you
of that
feel
character.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
as a viewer of the film, somebody's doing a good job, right? So I will say this. The guy is the master of monsters. There's no doubt about it. He will continue to be casted in roles like these because there's nobody better. And if you have an opportunity to get Bill Skarsgård and you think to yourself, he's already done or Nosferatu, he's already done it, you cast him anyways.
You
I
know
don't
what's
care
really
what.
funny about this? What you're saying right now? His dad did a creature in Pirates of the Caribbean,
Yeah,
and
he was
was
the pirate, one of Davy
the
Jones'
barnacle
pirates.
covered guy.
Yeah.
He was
And he's
fucking
also
phenomenal at it. He was
and he's
so
also he's pretty much like a floating slug in the movie Dune and
okay.
Dune 2. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
he's really fucking good at it. It's like it runs in the family or something, like something in their voice and demeanor.
so I'm gonna get into some of the reasons that I don't like, and listen, I'm gonna say this, like this, and I was giving you guys, like me and my brother should. This wasn't like a 0 out of 5 for me. I think this movie was like around a 2.5. So it was like half as good as the world told me it was supposed to be. But and I'm gonna say this, guys. I'm not gonna like. There's gonna be some spoilers in here just because I kind of have to describe why I think this movie fell short for me. All right.
Try to be
You
as
know,
general as possible
yeah.
and
The
as
first thing I'm gonna
little
say is
specifics as possible, please.
I don't
I
appreciate
haven't
Lily.
watched it yet.
Oh, I thought you just said you haven't watched. I was like, are you fucking
I
kidding
did. I
me?
was joking. It
Oh,
was a
oh.
joke. Like, no spoilers.
I don't appreciate Lily Rose Depp as an actress. I thought she was terrible as the character Ellen, but you might as well just call her Yellen before you go see this film because that's just what you should anticipate. She pretty much just has a horror scream that I'm sure somebody pegged as like $1 million scream. And that's pretty much what she does for the entirety of the film. She annoyed me to be on screen, and she's often on screen.
She's
So
also got a huge forehead. Her forehead is just
yeah, she's
massive.
yes, yeah, but and then another thing, I thought you guys said the cinematography was super impressive. I thought it was lazy. They kept doing this where they zoom real slowly into the face, and then as they zoom out of the face, the character's just in a new setting. He's just in a different room. Like he was floated somewhere by like these are not the droids you were looking for. It just felt very tacky. Like and he's like expressing fear, and he's like, Nosferatu will be like, we need to go to this study to sign the deed, and then he's just there, and I'm thinking like, if I'm him, I'm kind of like, hey, can you do the thing? I really don't want to fucking walk. Can you like float me around or whatever? That'd be cool. But he's like terrified from this, and I don't know. I thought they did it like in sequence and in a handful of scenes like 15 times, and I was like, all right, this you've really overkilled this. This is they got to stop doing this thing. And it lost its. It was supposed to be the first time it happens, it's creepy, and then you're just like, okay, this is the guy from Dune all over again. He's just floating all over the place, man. So that annoyed me. And then
Okay.
the makeup. I'm sorry, like Nosferatu or Count Orlok, I should say, the character himself, reminded me of Johnny Knoxville's bad grandpa mixed with Darth Vader without the helmet. That's what it reminded me of. And the breathing becomes a little obnoxious, like he's constantly doing this heavy breathing. And then as good as Skarsgård is, I said this to the person I was watching the film with, he rolls the R's like this Transylvania like so much that I
Yeah.
think I was hearing him do it in words that didn't actually have the letter R in them. Like it was a little bit of overkill, I thought. And then this is why I said this, man. We gotta talk about the ending of this film. I have to talk about it because this is where it fell shortest to me. It
Just
really did.
try to give as little specifics as possible.
Okay. Well, first off, you could have called this Nosferatu because the biggest threat this guy posed was he had this army of like fucking black plagued rats that follow him around and eat people. But the if somebody had just provided Count Orlok a watch, he never needs his character can live on forever. It's like going home when you were a teenager and snuck out at night and you like you met you lost cost you lost like track of time and you got home when your dad was like already getting up for work. That's kind of how it feels at the end of this film. It's like, oh, he didn't know. Okay, like,
Let
this
me
was
know
the
when you're
most.
done because
It
I'm so
was
ready.
It was the most anticlimactic. Like, it was the most anticlimactic. And then here's the thing that bothered me the most, because the story, like I said, is very comparable to Bram Stoker's Dracula. And Bram Stoker's Dracula, right, is this guy he's manipulative, he's charming, he's coercive. He makes the woman's falling in love with him. Even the characters in this film feel the same way about Count Orlok that I did. Everybody who he like tries to interject, everybody that he tries to force his hand over is just like, get the hell away from me, dude. You're fucking weird. You're old. You're decrepit. Get away from me. It's the character, the all powerful character, isn't really sold the best way to me. But I will say this, man. There's an artistic aspect to this film. It is very slow. You have to appreciate dialogue. This is not a horror film.
See you later, buddy.
This is not a horror film. It's not. It's not a horror film. It shouldn't be under that category. It's
Why is it not?
very.
Why is it
What's
not?
it?
Why is it not a horror film?
Because there's no horror.
Okay, but how do you define horror then?
Like,
what are you looking for to be horrified or to be
horror.
scared?
Not
Yeah,
suspense. Not suspense.
Specifically.
It's a suspense thriller. It's not a horror film. There's no horror in the film.
Okay.
There's nothing overly violent about it.
That's where I knew you were going to go.
There's a lot of cut scenes, so you don't. Whenever something's going to happen where it's implied death will occur, you don't get to watch it all the way through. Which I understand is more about art. They didn't want to do a shock value here where everybody's just getting hacked into pieces. Listen, I'll say this: an entire ship of people are killed, and you see one of them die. So it's not like if you watched, I forget the Demeter, the Voyage of the Demeter, like much more violent film, much more horror to me. But yeah, that's like I said, I give it a 2 out of 5. Robert Eggers is obviously a good director. Willem Dafoe plays a great character. I don't like the lead role, the guy who goes to Transylvania, who goes to get Count Orlok. I don't like the actor. There's some humor in this. The guy who plays
same actor from Mad Max, Fury Road.
The same actor who played Igor in a fucking Nicolas Cage straight to DVD comedy.
Nicholas Hoult,
yeah,
who was
not but a year ago. This guy played Igor in a comedy with Nicolas Cage, and I didn't think that was very good either, to be honest.
Nicholas Hoult, who is Nux in Mad Max Fury Road. He does a great job. He's actually a really good actor.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like 3 lines. He was killing it there for sure, dude.
Okay, Brandon. You're being very overly critical, and let me kind of explain why. First off,
I'm being critical. It's up to you to decide if I'm overly or not. I told you,
and I have decided.
I told
you
why
being overly critical. The biggest thing that I knew was going to be the linchpin of it not being a horror movie thing is the lack of violence, right? The lack of
horror,
the lack of violence, the lack of bloodshed, the lack of
that's defined as horror in film.
No, not necessarily, because you create horror in the mind, right? So suspense building up to something.
But suspense is a genre of film.
That does generate fear, though.
And that's a genre of film, suspense.
Correct. But it is a very big player in a horror movie, Brandon. I just let you talk for 10 minutes. You gonna let me talk?
I mean, you're poking holes in my theory. I got to defend myself.
Your theory is kind of shitty, bro. That's why I'm going to poke holes in it. Nosferatu, what you're referring to when he's not able to pull himself away, basically. Like the movie is a love story.
Yeah, you're about to spoil.
No, the movie is a love story. I'm just saying that the whole basis of the movie is about love, what you're willing to do for love, what you're willing to give up for love, how much you're going to sacrifice. That's what it's about. And I'll say this: if you were out, and you need to get home before your dad, you were out probably with a girl, and maybe that girl was worth getting. No,
there was other things that made me not get home on time. I'll be honest.
But it's all part of it, and we've all been there. That's something that you can relate to. So it's not that Nosferatu doesn't become dumb to me, or like Count Orlok doesn't become stupid to me in that situation, because I can relate to it. Like, it's something you want so badly, you can't pull yourself away from it. Everything he's doing throughout this movie is meant to get him to
I don't
the
lose
Lily
the meaning of any of it. It's just not done well.
No, And no, it's executed very well in terms of how they set it up, how they lay out the story, how they build the suspense to the climax, which was it's climactic if you're invested in the story. It is. If you're not invested in the story, then it's not going to have that effect on you. I mean, if you're talking about Count Orlok being like this disgusting thing, that's kind of the premise behind it, right? Is like beauty comes in different forms, and that beauty can be misconceived, and you could perceive it as beauty, or it could be perceived as that person is just manipulative enough to make want to give a shit about them. There's people like that in the world everywhere. Monsters that make people fall in love with them through manipulation. That stuff exists in life. You can't compare Gary Oldman's Dracula to Bill Skarsgård's Count Orlok. Obviously, like Oldman is very fuckable, and it's a
Well,
very
and
sexual
Nosferatu's
thing.
not supposed to be.
No, for
The
sure.
original Nosferatu, the monster is he terrifies people.
Correct. 100%.
Nobody's drawn to this person. They
But
run from
that
him.
exactly, and that's the point, right? Because the fact that he is able to draw in this beautiful woman shows how powerful he is.
But he's not able to draw her in.
Shows how Brandon, it's the whole crux of the movie, that she is connected to him and he is connected
And
to
she
her.
rejects him. Yes.
And she works very hard to reject him, and she has moments where she weakens. And it's built up upon throughout the movie to where she finally has the resolve to make a decision, is the way I'll put it. And that is impressive in and of itself. Lily Rose Depp is not the greatest actress. I think Eggers made a big mistake. Like he should have gone with Anya Taylor-Joy, who's been in multiple movies of his. She would have been perfect for the role. She would have been more subtle. But there is a part of these movies that needs to be overly sexual and overly dramatic, and that's just a theme throughout these movies that I think Eggers just leaned into really hard. So if you're appreciating it for what it is, then you can kind of understand where it's coming from. Lily Rose Depp, I first saw her in The Idol, and she's over the top in that too. It just seems to be her
And
personality.
what's unfortunate, man, is her co-star Emma Corrin is a much better actress. She's a really, really fucking good actress. Emma Corrin
She does
is
a good
one
job
of
in
the
the
best
movie, in her
actresses
role.
I've seen within the last few years in a television.
But she wouldn't have been able to do the role that Lily Rose Depp did. She's not sexy enough. She doesn't draw you in enough, right?
I wouldn't call either sexy, but that's definitely up to the viewer for sure.
The sexuality that Lily Rose Depp is able to give off is a very important part of the movie. It is. And again, I think an Anya Taylor-Joy could have done it in a more subtle way. She's a much better actress, and she
looks the part too.
Yes, 100%. I think that was a big miss, and maybe she turned it down. Maybe I don't know the background of it. I haven't looked into it to that extent, but I will say the cinematography, the landscapes, the architecture, it's all very visually appealing. I enjoyed it. I mean, not to the level of The Revenant in terms of like your landscape views and those things, but it's got some really good ones.
I'll say this. I said this to my girlfriend when watching the film. It's very, and I do the thing where like you can lighten it's very dark. It's very, very dark. And I mean, sometimes the only thing you can see is whatever's focused in the center of your screen. You
and
can't
that's intentional
see
as well.
behind you. Yeah, you can't see
that's
anything.
Intentional.
There's so many times where they're in the castle and you're like, something's behind him, but it's just a black wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's because that's building the suspense, which creates horror. Like that's the point of it. Well, and you mentioned the rats. You mentioned the rats, Brandon. They're not.
That's a good joke.
Sure. They're not meant to be like his army of rats that he sends at people to kill them or whatever. It's more manipulation. Those rats.
It's representative of death.
It is representative of that, but it also is a cloak for him to hide behind because everyone's focused on that. So he's now able to do his thing over here. It's a misdirect, and it's part of his manipulation. And Count Orlok is a master manipulator in the movie. So again, it really boils down to me to be like the tale as old as time is like, it's just a love story. He's in love with Lily Rose Depp's character, and so is this other dude, and he needs to get this dude out of his way to get to this girl. So the story rings true no matter what to me, because that's a good story in film and in literature, and it always has been. And it's impactful because we've all been in love, we've all been in relationships that were toxic or that were really good, and we had to fight for them, and we had to give things up for the person we love, right? So that rings very true to me. And I just enjoyed the way he set it up. Eggers set it up in such a way that I was kind of on the edge of my seat throughout it, because I know the story, and it's very similar, like you said,
Oh,
to the
dude, I was dozing off. I was
I,
dozing off. I'm gonna be
very
honest.
well. Again, it's how much you got to put into it too, and movies should drag you in. If it didn't drag you in, it didn't do its job for you.
It was to
It
me.
it
They're
did
very
it did it for me.
they're very Dracula and Nosferatu are very similar stories. They are. They're all. It's almost the exact same story. It is. It's one is just a rendition of the other, right? This one's much drier. That's why I'll say that. It's a much. I will never turn this film back on again and watch it. I can
I'm
tell you
going
that
to.
for
I'm going to
sure.
watch it again,
Yeah, there's
because
no way in hell. And
yeah,
my girlfriend said was like very much disappointed that we spent the money. Watched it. I
Brandon,
mean, it's twenty
what's the
bucks.
most impactful scene in Scarface to you? The movie Scarface with Al Pacino.
Impactful.
Yeah, what's the scene that stands out the most to you? If you're thinking about that movie,
I
what do you go
it's
to?
it's hard for me to say, man. Like when I was a child, and because I watched that very early when I like probably the chainsaw, the removal of the arm in the fucking shower is probably the
Mhm.
scene
And they
that
very intent, and I knew you were gonna say that because that's everyone's, but they very intentionally show very little of the actual violence of that. It's a
no, and
very
it's
quick
the
shot
part
of the blood just kind of spurting out,
well,
and
not
they
even
go
that,
away from it.
where he has to when he follows him out, where he has to go in front of him as opposed to shooting him in the back. That's what makes you kind of it's like the finish of that scene, that entirety of the entirety of that sequence is the best.
My point, though, is that what you don't see, and it's a trick in film that's been used forever. What you don't see is much more powerful than what you do see. If you're committed to it, if you're in it, if you're in the movie, and that is used very well in this movie. They slowly build up, and then in the way that they build up, like when there's a scene where Count Orlok is in his coffin, and Nicholas Holt is going, and he's like, I'm gonna do this, and he goes to take care of him, and you see Orlok actually kind of jump up, and actually you see his physical prowess and his dominance, and how scary that actually is, like how he looks like this old decrepit dude that doesn't pose a threat to anyone, and
He
then you see he's actually a massive beast that can do whatever he wants. That is horror.
well
That
he
is
he
horror.
he does a really good Skarsgård does a really if you watch the old one, man, he moves the same exact way as the person who played the original Count Orlok. The movement, the characters are very different, especially the way they appear. Like the old one, he's not like rotting to the
The
flesh.
white face, the big long
Yeah,
ears, and like
the
that's
claws.
the original.
But
Yeah.
the way he moves and the way he's holding his hands is almost identical. Like Skarsgård is just a master. The guy is a master, man. He's a master at doing this.
So is Eggers, though, and I just got to give credit to Eggers for taking on such a complex remake,
Yeah, it
and
is.
and really giving his best effort and trying to put his own spin on it. And I think it worked. It worked for me. I was bought in from the beginning to the story, because you knew right away what the story was, and because obviously it's a story that you already knew, but like the characters were good enough to get me committed to them, and the monster Count Orlok Skarsgård was good enough at his job to where I was afraid of what he was capable of. This guy will fucking kill kids. He don't give a fuck. He is a bringer of death. And the one scene that we didn't talk about that kind of establishes it early on, before Holt actually gets to the castle. I mean, that group of people that is trying to warn him not to go up there, and they're
Right. This
just
is this is done in Dracula too. Yeah. This
yeah,
is
exactly.
the gypsies. Yeah, I'm sorry to use the
Hmm.
term, but that's what they are. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
That I will say this though, man. I think I agree with you. I think horror film was much easier. Horror was much easier to do when, like you said, what you just said, it's what you don't see. It's what leaves you thinking. Today, people want to see it.
I
That's just
don't.
what it
I'm
is.
over it.
People
I don't
want
need
to see it.
Saw. I don't want Saw. I don't
I
want
love
the.
Saw,
I don't want
but
the
that's just
horror
the
porn.
first movie. The first movie was great, but
I don't want the horror porn. I don't prefer it. So this comes down to a preference thing too, right? Because if that's what you're looking for in your horror movie, then Eggers was not giving that to you, and that might have
the
left a
the
bad taste in your mouth.
the thing that I feel ashamed about not mentioning, because to me the thing that was done the best, even more so than Eggers directing, was the screenplay of this film. Guys, the language used is much different from what you're reading on the old Nosferatu as the subtitles come across the screen between motion. But
The dialogue, yeah,
the language is it's literally like I don't like 18th century Transylvanian language. I mean, a Romanian language. It's ridiculous how well this movie is scripted. That's the thing that keeps us really captivated is the language that's used and how Orlok presents it, right? Like
yeah.
the way he says the word forefathers is,
My
like I said, man.
forefathers.
He.
Impressive.
I suggest everybody to watch this movie because you have to see Skarsgård play this fucking role. You absolutely have to. I thought that was the best part of the movie. He carried the movie to me, and he's in it a lot. I'll say
I
this:
gotta give other characters some credit while
in
we're
the
if
original Nosferatu, you don't see Orlok a whole lot. He's not in a ton of the film. He kind of appears at night when people are trying to go to sleep and stuff. Like you've seen this. You've seen the
what's
scene
the movie
like
you
come.
mentioned? What's the movie you mentioned with the vampire on the boat? What's the name of that movie again?
The village or voyage of the Demeter, I think,
Did you
which is
watch that
just
movie?
that part of the story.
Did you
The
watch that
original.
movie?
I did.
Was it better? Did you like it better
I
because
did.
of
Yes.
really?
Well, no, I just liked it better because it's intense, man. It's really intense.
I gotta check that movie out.
The whole film is in a storm, and it's just like it is in the voyage during Nosferatu. They're in the storm because it's the same story. The voyage of the Demeter is literally just the ship
Yeah,
traveling.
just going
That's
from
that's that's
Transylvania
all it is. Yep,
to
from A to B. That's
Germany.
it. But it's pretty intense, man. For making it just a single setting on a ship for the whole damn movie, it's pretty intense. It really
I
is.
gotta give some other characters some credit real quick. Aaron Taylor Johnson was awesome in
He's
his
awesome, yeah.
role in this movie. Like he does a really good job
And he's going
of
to be in 28 years later. He's getting the horror. The
and
horror
he's gonna
thing's
be
coming.
Bond. And he's gonna be
Oh
Bond.
yeah, that's right. They did
Yeah.
just say that. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
blowing up right now, man.
but I mean, he does a very good job of being a guy who can't commit to actually believing that this person exists. So it drives him crazy, and then he obviously has a lot of grief in the movie. He plays it off really well. And Willem Dafoe as was it Professor Albin Eberhard von Schnickel. I don't. It's too long to read. Willem Dafoe is insane in this movie, and it's fucking awesome throughout. Like they're just dancing in fire, insane. I love Willem Dafoe. I love in the movies when you get the guy. Everybody's like, "What the hell is going on here?" I have no idea. And then the guy comes in out of nowhere. Is like, "I know exactly what's going on." Everyone's been telling me I'm crazy for years because I've been studying this, but he actually becomes like the guy who was shunned by society becomes the most important person to society in that moment because he can actually give you some insight into what the fuck is going on. He does a great job as that character. I love him.
And you can tell he's the actor that other actors working with him are just completely in awe with. He gets so close to Mike. Was it what's his name? Taylor, the
Aaron
guy with
Taylor Johnson.
Aaron Taylor Johnson. And there's a scene where the actor is literally like probably touching his face, and I'm sure Aaron Taylor Johnson is like, "Oh my god!" Like the actor filming this is like, "Dude, this is so intense." Like he's so in character. It's
like
just so it's making me uncomfortable as a person, not as the character.
Pacino in Heat when he's talking to Hank Azaria. She got a big old ass.
Well, I think they
He's like
told
in his
like
face.
it was like, hey, Willem, your character is supposed to kind of get so intense and so up close that he makes his character uncomfortable. And Willem Dafoe was like, well, this is easy. I'm just gonna make the actor uncomfortable. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make the actor uncomfortable so it's easy for him to play his part. You know what I mean?
Listen, if we're ranking it out of 5, I'm going to give it a 3.8. It's a solid movie. It's done really well. It's been done a lot of times, and I'm always here for that story. I love the Dracula story. I love the vampire story, and I love the sexuality that comes with it. I love the the darkness that comes with it, and I love the love story that always comes with it. You know, it's always good. The immortality aspect of it too. Like there's just so many
And
layers
then
to these stories.
you always have that Igor character who's losing his mind. That's always tough to play. You have to get a good actor for
Yeah.
that, man.
The power that this person wields over people, and they're a monster. People can look at this person and see this is a disfigured monster, but I'm going to give up
Get
my life for this
get
person.
closer to him.
Yeah. Like that aspect is all I'm always here for that. So like I loved it. I'm going to watch it again. And I recommend that everybody else watches it and form your opinion. I will ask you this, Brandon. I mean, you came out hot, but like, did any of my counter arguments make you think like maybe I should watch this again and try to get a second take on it? Maybe I would. There's a
No,
lot of times
no,
I've
man.
watched movies, Brandon, and I'm not in the right place here, and it impacts my opinion of that movie. And I'll
No,
watch it again 5 years later and be like, this movie's a way different movie than I thought it was.
no, and I can't stand that about you guys, man. That's I'm very opposed to that. The way that I see a film
You're
first is the way
opposed to giving something a second thought?
I see a movie first is the way it affects me most. I would never see a film for a second time and be like, oh, it affected me so it hit me so much harder. No, I hate
Yeah.
the impulse. I hate this movie sucked, and then that same person texts me, I watched it again, it's actually really good. Or this movie is incredible, and then they're like, I watched it again. It's all right. I don't understand that. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense. The first time you watch a film, it should have the biggest impact over you. Whether it sucked, it's good. That should be the time most where you're like, this is how I feel about this. You know what I mean? Like I told you guys,
Yeah, but
I
the
saw
way
the
you
gorge.
experience things in certain times, it can change if you're in a different place in your life. Like that has happened to me throughout my life, and I mean, it's not a waffling thing. It's like your perspective changes. That
I
happens in
guess
life. You should be open minded
I
to
don't
that.
feel as if I've ever told you, Dustin, when I've seen a film like this is how I thought about it. I'm never going to tell you different. Like you guys asked me how the gorge was. I said it's not a great film. It's entertaining. That's what it is. I'm not going to change that. I could go back and watch it. I'm going to think it entertained me again, but the acting didn't get better. The writing didn't get better. You know what I mean? The directing didn't get. It's just what it is. What it is.
Its impact on you can change, Brandon. It can, and I think you should be more open minded to that. So you're saying that nothing that I said meant anything. It doesn't change
No,
any of your thoughts about this movie
I
that you
think
came
the
out with.
message I think the message that the movie was trying to project, portray, deliver, you very much received, and I did not.
For sure.
But
And that
and
can
I'll
be
say
impacted
this.
by our emotional and mental state at the time that we do watch a movie. The way we receive music, any kind of art,
Well,
it is in the eye of the person who's watching it, and those eyes can change depending on what's going on behind them. For
and
sure.
I was told the movie was, I think incredible was the word. I didn't watch it expecting it to be incredible, but it still underwhelmed me. So I don't know. And then I'll say this, man, like I don't want to watch a whole lot of movies twice to figure out if I like them. I don't do that. I very few movies that I go back and watch twice. I don't do that a lot. There's a lot of movies today coming out. If you're going to see them, you can't be going back and rewatching all of them. You know what I mean? You got to keep seeing them. So, like, I don't.
Listen, I'll recommend this movie. I'll
Yeah,
recommend that you watch it understanding what it is and try to appreciate it for that. If you don't, it's okay. Obviously, like Brandon, you
and
don't like the movie, that's okay. It,
and
it
if
is
you
what
can
it
do
is.
it, if you can
I
do it,
enjoyed it
guys,
when I watched it. That's what matters to me.
if you can do it, guys, watch the original too. Before you watch this film, watch the original film.
I've seen the original one a couple of times. I've done multiple film classes as well. That's always
It's
a go-to that they show you in
it's
those
rough.
classes.
It's
It's
rough.
a hard watch. It
I mean, I'm
is.
sure it wasn't. I'm sure there's a day where I was like, wow,
Yeah, it's
this
a
is
hard
crazy.
watch. So, but the story again is so good that I am glad that a guy took it and put a modern spin on it in terms of how he portrayed it on film. And I was excited about that because I understood the value of Nosferatu and why teachers were showing it to me is because it's very impactful in terms of the story that it put out there at the time that it put it out there.
Well, it's one of
But
the best books ever written. Yeah.
Yeah. So like in terms of film, it was a groundbreaking thing that happened for many reasons.
My
It's
phone's
just
about to
hard to
die
get
here.
through. So I'm glad there's a new version. What's that?
My phone's gonna die.
All right. So guys, watch Nosferatu. If you don't like it, let us know. If you do like it, let us know. You can throw it in the comments. Tell us what you think. Everybody's been pretty quiet here, but we still have viewers. So, I mean, obviously, people have enjoyed the conversation. Brandon, again, I hope that some of the things I said, rang true to you in some kind of way to where at least there's a level of appreciation for the movie. Robert Eggers does weird shit. This movie was insane, off the wall, over dramatic. It really messing with a lot of your senses, a sensory overload in some ways. And he likes to do that with his movies. You watch The Witch, The Northman is a hell of a movie. Lighthouse. I mean, Eggers is off the wall and he takes a lot of chances. So, I mean, when you take chances, you're going to lose some people for sure. Brandon, you out of here, boss? Oh, God. Can you get that other one out of here? I can't stomach more than one of you.
I want to say bye. I don't want to just... There we go. Not only did my phone die, man, the thing that
Jedediah is with us. I haven't seen Jedediah in the chat in a long time, man. We appreciate you, boss. Hit that like button. I don't think we've said hit that like button one time this entire show. Shame on us. Guys, hit the like button. Please subscribe. 4-star Chicago Sports.
And I don't agree with you, Jedediah. Like I said, though, guys, I can't be going back and watching every film I watched twice to determine if I liked it.
I'm just saying you sound a little closed off.
I sound like a person who was told I'm supposed to like this film, and I'm being.
No one's told you you were supposed to like it. Just because someone else enjoyed it and recommended it to you doesn't mean that you're supposed to like it. That's a weird way to look at a movie recommendation. It just is. If someone tells me that they enjoyed a movie and then I go watch it and I'm not a fan of it, I might jokingly give them some shit, but you're allowed to enjoy what you enjoy, and I don't feel like those expectations are put on me. And this is what I was saying earlier, Jed. Life experience completely alter how something impacts you. Your understanding changes throughout life. Yeah, that's 100% the point I was trying to make. So I appreciate you piling on a little bit with that, because I'm glad it resonated with someone. Jedediah. Jesus, Brandon.
Well, and I'll say this, man. You can say that for sure. I agree with you, but to what end? If every song can change based on what you're going through in life, and every movie can change based on what you're going through in life, and every story you read can change, like, do you just continue to reread, rewatch, and re-listen to the same thing over and over until it hits you the right way?
No, that's not what anyone's saying. Just saying that art is always going to be up for interpretation, whether it's a picture, whether it's music, whether it's a movie, and your interpretation of things does change throughout life. It's not like it's an assignment that you got to go watch it again and tell me you like it. Just saying that it's a possibility that you could have a different perspective on something because the person who made it had a certain perspective when they were making it. That picture, that song, that movie.
I'm going to say this, guys. By professionals, this movie was given a good review. By viewers, it's dropping into like the low 2s right now. It's not the consensus that this movie was phenomenal. Just want to say that. It's the Google review last time I checked was at like 17,000 views, and it was 2.1.
And you saying that doesn't change my opinion on the movie at all, because
no, but I think when
that movie was not made for mass appeal, Brandon.
When it first came out, I think everybody and every critic was like, "This movie's phenomenal," and then the viewers had a different view.
Yeah, for sure, but it's not because the lead character is an African American woman, or it's not because it's about a transgender person that's selling drugs.
Yeah,
it's not getting an unfair bump from the critics. It's getting that review from the critics because it is a masterfully made movie. It's well filmed, it's well executed, and it tells a great story.
Yes,
So
the story is absolutely like the story is Nosferatu Dracula, guys. It's a story like you said. I love the story of Nosferatu and I love Dracula.
Jed says he gets your point on how significant the first viewing is, especially in cinema. Yeah, man, I do too. Like certain movies impact you. You go see Jurassic Park in theaters for the first time when you're 9 years old. That impacts you for the rest of your life.
And I don't even know. I don't even know if that's most people consensus because I'll be honest. Like most people I know who watch movies will text me something, and then later they'll tell me something. It's like I don't think I'm. I think I'm like one of the only people I know whose first impression from something is just what it is. I don't often change it. A lot of people I know change the way they feel about something after seeing or listening to it or reading it again. I just often don't. I really don't. Like, and I, me and my brother both very heavily critical over film, and he would always tell me like, "Hey man, just go check it out again." I'm telling you, check it out again. And I'd watch it, and I'd tell him, It's not very different from me, man. I don't know what to, like, you know what I mean. It's just
yeah. Listen, man.
To me, I think something's going to impact you the most the first time you experience it. I don't think it's going to get more impactful as you watch it again or again.
It again, that's your call, your prerogative. I would recommend the movie. Check it out. And then just to throw it out, man, I mean, I started watching Paradise. I told you to watch it. You've been watching it. It seems like you've been enjoying it. Recommend that highly to anybody listening. Check out Paradise with Sterling K. Brown on Hulu. The show is there's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of very good character depth and development that kind of takes you on a good roller coaster ride. So just wanted to make that quick recommendation for anybody listening. Paradise is worth a watch.
My camera holder here, like I'm pretty sure just broke, and I don't know how.
Well, you're gonna have to get that situated.
Yeah,
it's probably a good time to call it, man. We're at 2 hours and 15 minutes at this point. We appreciate everybody for being in here. You got anything else you want to add, Brandon? Any other recommendations before we get out of here?
No, man, but this was fun. The movie thing was fun. We should do this again if next time there's a movie. You know what I mean? Obviously, not every week we can review a movie, but we should definitely do it again. We'll be doing that more.
Yeah, maybe next time. Maybe next time, let me make my points after I let you make yours quietly and respectfully. But yes, I agree. It's good that we disagree because it gives you two different perspectives, and whoever decides to watch can be the judge. And obviously, everybody's gonna think about it differently, and that's okay. That's what's fun about conversation is differing viewpoints, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
That's how closely film relates to sports. People
100%
often find a different way to view something.
Yes. So we're going to try to do this more often, guys. Get you guys some movie reviews.
Yeah, and hopefully my shit's not going to fall apart at the end here, guys.
Well, hopefully you get that figured out.
It's like, what the hell is going on right now, dude? My phone dies.
Rewatch a movie every week.
I got another phone, and then the phone holder breaks. Like, what the fuck?
Jed says we should rewatch a movie every week and debate. We appreciate that, Jed. That's a good idea. One of my favorite podcasts.
For it, Jed, we will do that.
Yeah. One of my favorite podcasts is the Rewatchables, Bill Simmons. So I don't want to like bite off of that too hard, but we'll figure something out. But a little bit of a better structure to this. But I liked what we did here, Brandon, and hopefully we can get a following, guys. If you guys, it's not just sports. You know, we love movies, we love music, we love certain things politically to discuss food, and we can get into anything. And if y'all are here for it, we love you for it. And if not, we'll still talk about it.
Yeah, and actually, Dustin, just probably, like, guys, I was considering this too. Podcasts. I mean, Dustin can, like he just said, the Rewatchables podcast is something we could tell you. Make a podcast every week that we think you should check out, find some intrigue in.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah. Okay. Very good, Brandon. Your angle's weird. You're very dark right now.
This is pissing me off, to be honest.
Everybody, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you like Nosferatu and you actually watch it, come back and leave a comment and let us know. Or if you don't like it, let us know.
Yeah, if you've already watched it, guys, throw it in the chat right now.
All right, appreciate y'all. Have a lovely rest of your morning, and we'll see you guys again on Monday with the Hallis Hall Hangover. Bear down.